Meyer backpedaling, running out of time, spinning away, and nobody open. Now he flips it up into traffic and makes a mistake. Tried to force the play, and it's intercepted. BJ Mays rumbling down inside the 10.
This is 365 Sports.
Bowling Green with no timeouts. Nick Singleton. Touchdown, Penn State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Klubnik, undaunted, unafraid, complete, Turner, touchdown!
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Why not?
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Jennings on the play fake, slides it upfield. Matthew Hickner off to the races. Hickner at the 30, full speed, and the big tight end goes 75. It's a Pony Express.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Monday, a brand new week in May 19th, 2025. We appreciate your time. If you wouldn't mind off the top before you get distracted by all of what happens in the chat room, if that's what you do, hit the like and subscribe button. We will take you up until around 6 o'clock today. A couple of the guests, Shahan Raja, CBS Sports, on a Big 12 power poll he put together. Shane Ryan covers golf for the Golf Digest on Scotty Scheffler in the PGA Championship. Plus, we have a couple of other pretty good nuggets, too, including the polls from Andrew Valady, just put one up, Paul's Top 5, and this story right here. We'll start with this. This is from Tom Fornelli from CBS Sports. Which Big 12 teams are college football contenders? Arizona State, Baylor, Iowa State, K-State, and Texas Tech. Those are the 5 names that are up. I think those are all good. I don't, anybody that's missing from that list, you could always maybe debate 1 or 2, but those are the 5 that, according to the FanDuel Sportsbook, are the top contenders in the Big 12.
I think that when you start with, and this is for any conference, the way that you look at who are real contenders is who have the least amount of questions about them, right? The more questions about them, the less likely they are to win it. And so when you look at a team, like let's just say, there's always an out-of-nowhere team, but let's pick Houston as the out-of-nowhere team this year. Well, they've got, what about, Connor Wigman? Can he stay healthy? What about the defense? Can they be as good after losing Shill Wood? Can they, what about there's probably 6 or 7 what about questions. Arizona State, really they just lost Cam Scadaboo, so can you replace Cam Scadaboo, at least in the aggregate? Baylor, their whatabouts to me really aren't that dire because they've got a good quarterback. The offensive line appears fixed, and they've got a running game that works. The defense is improving. Iowa State, really, to me, of all these, has really the least. The only question I have with Iowa State is can they deal with promise? And, everybody else, Texas Tech, can all their roster things hit? And Kansas State, can Avery Johnson be better in year 2? Because I don't think in any of these 5 you really question the coaching all that much.
Yeah, I mean, these are pretty much the teams that have been talked about the entire offseason as the favorites. I don't think anything's really happened to change that, so these make sense. For better or worse, I think these are the teams that pound for pound seem to have the least amount of questions and the most amount of answers, and certainly there will be some team or 2 or 3 that will get into this mix and shake it up. I'm surprised to see BYU's not on here.
That's what Bracket Cat just said. Surprising they're missing.
I think that's the first team that jumps out to me as far as almost kind of surefire things. Maybe surefire is not the right word, but the teams that make sense for what they have on paper, for what we've seen with our own eyes, for what we've learned this offseason. these 5 all make sense. They all have quarterbacks coming back. So does BYU. So that to me is a glaring omission. I'd have them at worst right there with Texas Tech in the 5 spot, maybe even right there with Kansas State. So that's the part that jumps out to me. As far as any other snubs or somebody that belongs in this group, I don't think there's anybody quite of the profile of BYU that I'm like, how are they not on here? I think everybody else is just sort of a question mark. TCU is on the outside, but I can kind of understand that they're a hard team to peg. We know they've got their quarterback coming back, so that should be a feather in their cap, especially given he's a pretty good quarterback. But I don't know. It's just weird with TCU. There's just not a great feel for them. I think everybody expects them to be good, like 7-8 wins, bare minimum, and then maybe even better than that. Certainly not worse than that. But I don't know what's preventing them from maybe being in that top group. They'd be a team that I'd have like right there on the edge, though. Beyond that, just scanning the teams in the league, we could go over them. We don't need to do that. But I think it's pretty obvious why those who aren't mentioned are not being mentioned. I do think there are some candidates. I think Utah is one of them. I think just the spirit in Morgantown right now maybe propels them a little bit higher than expected. I mean, maybe Gundy and Oklahoma State have this massive turnaround that they're hoping for. But, yeah, I think this is pretty much the group that you're eyeing with the exception of the BYU omission.
One thing, it's not listed 1 through 5. It's alphabetical order, so it has Arizona State, Texas Tech, and K-State. Okay, Arizona State, K-State, Tech, Baylor, and then Iowa State.
Okay, normally I wasn't looking at that. Normally they're by the odds. So, I'd have them at worst with BYU with Iowa State. Certainly, I think you find them at plus 1,300 or whatever. So, yeah.
All right, and then for those of you in the chat, and we do appreciate it, that's what it's for you to say, okay, what about this? Paul, we came up with rules, Craig. We came up with the rules that, you could list 8. There's 16 teams. But it's always a little bit more difficult when you go, well, BYU should be in there, or where is TCU or whoever, then who do you drop out?
Yeah, but this isn't the top 25. I don't have to limit it. So I think BYU can be in a list of contenders. It doesn't have to be, there's only 5 of them. So if it's a list of contenders, then the list needs to be 6.
7 or 8, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this isn't the top 25 where, you have to fit them all in. There's no more after that. This is open-ended. So, yeah, I'd have them there. But, yeah, if this was the top 25 poll and you were saying what teams deserve to be ranked, then you would need to say, all right, well, if you put Texas Tech in, then who do you take out? But on this, I think that BYU deserves to be mentioned there. And I think, maybe there's another team you could sneak in depending on who you're talking to. But that would be a pretty solid list in my estimation. It's a pretty solid list with just those 5, but I was surprised to not see the Cougars.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that that throwing BYU in there would be good because, again, to me, I don't question their coaching. I don't question their style of play. I think the biggest question was Jake Retzlaff a flash in the pan. I don't think so, especially going back to that style of play. I think they've created a situation that protects them very well. So I'm all like, I think that. And again, these are also the situations, you throw BYU in there with with returning starting quarterbacks too. Sam Levin's back, Sawyer Robertson's back, Rocco Becht is back, Avery Johnson's back, Baron Morton's back. So really the question about Baron Morton is how many games does he play? If he plays 10 or more, I really like Texas Tech for this. If he's less than that, then, we got to see how Will Hammond or Mitch Griffiths does, whoever is the number 2 out of camp, which is probably Will Hammond.
What makes it difficult, the Big 12 is always, Big 12 is always a little bit bipolar when it comes to trying to pick and, trying to pinpoint. But with the quarterback play, which goes now to what Tom Fornelli wrote from CBS Sports, is that what makes the Big 12, if in fact, if they were to get more than one team in the college football playoff. Tom Fornelli on CBS Sports, we reached out to him, haven't heard back. Quarterback depth trumps most everything because of who they have. And on top of that, questions elsewhere around college football might open the door for the Big 12 to end up with more than just one, more than just the automatic qualifier and just the Big 12 champion. Now, I don't know. You would think that, but you do have a lot of good, young, and yet experienced and very talented quarterback play. But he was running an arc. Do you agree with that, Paul and Craig? The quarterback depth makes this, if they're going to squeeze an extra team in before it expands, that this would be it. There's only been 1 year of it, and they didn't make it with last year.
Now, I do question that, Arizona State, look, Kenny Dillingham's the best QB coach in the country going right now, but Jeff Sims is the backup there. But I know that Baylor feels really confident in what Walker White will be able to do going forward, and I do like what's going on at Texas Tech when it comes to the backup quarterbacks. Now, the others on the list, I probably have more questions about, but it's not just quarterback depth. It's the guys at the top are just really, really good all the way across the board. I mean, I do think that there's a good chance that I said this on a podcast, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, somebody asked me, and I said the Big 12 is the deepest quarterback league, and it would not surprise me to see them get 3 first-rounders in the 2026 draft if everything goes that way, and maybe some guys in the early part of the second round too. But look, and TCU wasn't on that list because, again, you got a lot of questions about their running game and defense. But if you told me that Sawyer Robertson, Sam Levitt, and Josh Hoover found their way into the first round, I wouldn't call you crazy.
Yeah, I think in terms of the mocks, Sam Levitt's the only one that I've really seen getting love. I know Sawyer Robertson's been mentioned a lot, and I think that's so far out that it's not surprising if there's some omissions or maybe just the misjudging on where those guys really are, where they really are on the NFL radar. But I do think the Big 12's got a variety of different flavors when it comes to the quarterback position and a lot of talent and some guys who are going to be playing on Sundays, and those are the 3 guys that I'd probably – put right at the top of the list. I mean, Levitt and Robertson certainly have been getting a lot of love, but I think Hoover will get even more in time. And then who knows? I mean, Rocco Becht was there celebrating Brock Purdy's big contract the other day. Maybe he'll be a guy. I don't know. I haven't been in the mocked game, but I do know there is a lot of buzz now already about some of those Big 12 quarterbacks. So, yeah, that'll be a reason why the league, I think, is in the mix, and maybe we'll have more than a team. I look at that more that way, not so much the depth that each team has, but I do know in the case of Baylor with a Walker White or a Texas Tech with a Will Hammond, I don't know about everybody else's situation necessarily, but for those two, I do feel like if worse things do happen or push comes to shove and they do have to go the backup route, then I think they would be confident. I don't know about everybody else, but I think there is some good quarterback depth on some of these teams that can keep their head afloat if something were to happen. But, the focus on just the starting depth, which I think is probably what he was talking about, I do think it's a year where the spotlight deservedly should be on the league for its quarterback play. And so hopefully these guys answer the call and they all have big years.
The Big 12 was 5-8 last year against the ACC, Big 10, and SEC. That's got to get better, even if you flip it or get to 500, which is an odd number. Also, they have games against Auburn, Georgia Tech, Iowa, Missouri, North Carolina, Nebraska, Oregon, and SMU. Baylor playing both Auburn and SMU, and others playing some of those schools too. You need to win those games. They not expect to win all of them, but you need to win some of them. That wouldn't hurt. And then here's another one that I never thought about. Notre Dame needs to have an off year, right? Because the SEC and the Big Ten have theirs. The Group of Five has theirs, or their one automatic qualifier. The Big 12 has theirs. ACC has theirs. And again, this is not saying that they will, because Marcus Freeman coming off a huge year. If Notre Dame has any kind of a lackluster or lower than perhaps what they were last year, do they get left out? And does that open up another spot? That's from Tom Fornelli from CBS Sports.
Well, look, I think if you ask most teams that they would, in every conference, they'd be thrilled that Notre Dame didn't make the playoff, because that, again, that leaves it up to and look, maybe the committee really wants Notre Dame to, be 10-2 at the end of the year so they can be like, hands are tied, got to put them in. Because then if you get Notre Dame out of this thing, if Notre Dame winds up 8-4, and then you have to go to 10-2 Big 12, ACC, SEC, and Big 10 teams and go to that and go, okay, well, is, say, Iowa State better than, Indiana this year? They're both 10-2. Like, what's the strength of schedule say? That's really, really tough. But yeah, I would think that they would want them. Obviously, to probably make it's easier for them to go like, well, there's a spot. Darn.
I think everybody's looking at the possibility of having somebody extra if Notre Dame doesn't get in. The Big 12 could be looking for their second team, or the ACC, or could be the Big 10 looking for its fourth team to get in the playoffs. So I think everybody who doesn't have skin in the Notre Dame games probably hoping that they don't make it in, because that does boost your chances, even if only a little bit, to get that extra team, whatever it may be, your second or your fifth in there. So, yeah, that just makes sense that if one less team's there, that's one more spot available for everybody else.
Jayhawk champ, I love that no one's talking about yet another quarterback who is back named Jalen Daniels at KU, who last year had those huge expectations and it just did not work out. Somebody said whoever has the best veteran backup quarterback and defense will play in Arlington because of attrition at the quarterback position.
You know, the only reason I think when you get to what ifs, the biggest what if about Kansas is defensively, can they hold up? And they've changed offensive coordinators now a couple times in the last couple of years. Can they hit the ground running like they did a couple of years ago? Like, 2 years ago they hit the ground running and then they faded at the end because Daniels wasn't there. Then last year, they did not hit the ground running, and they peaked at the end because he was there the whole time, but really wasn't until the end, and then had to play that thriller against Baylor and wound up not being bowl eligible. But I think they have a couple more what ifs, which is why they're not in that top 5 playoff contender category. They've got to get there first, I think, before people really believe, and not just be man, this is a cute little story. Look what Lance Leipold's doing there. They've got to be a real contender from beginning to end and not have these little peaks and valleys.
I don't know who had the most players in the Big 12 drafted, but KU had a handful drafted, so they've lost those. But, yeah, with Leipold there and Jalen Daniels back, it is something that remains to be seen.
I think it's just a course correction, because last year we heard all sorts of things about Jalen Daniels, and it didn't amount to much until he finally got a little bit healthy towards the end of the year. So I think everybody's just cautiously optimistic with him and not going overboard on the expectations, because we all just assumed he'd be back to being Jalen Daniels a year ago, and then he very much wasn't and had to battle through some things, and then finally started to show some signs of being that guy, I think, as we got to the latter part of the season. So there is hope that he can be that guy again, but I know he's also dinged up dealing with some stuff this spring. So I think, everybody's just sort of waiting to see how healthy he is before we go all in on Jalen Daniels. But certainly people know his talent when he's at his best, and it's just a matter of, can he be at his best like he was a couple of years ago? So I don't think it's disrespect. It's just cautious optimism and not trying to make the same mistake as last year, just assuming too much about where he is in his game. But, he certainly is a guy that is not getting love, that could find himself there on the all Big 12 team at the end of the year. And I think Kansas, as opposed to last year, it wasn't just the quarterback talk, it was the team itself. They obviously didn't perform up to standards, kind of got back right there at the end, and then that Baylor blowout in the final game just crushed any of those bowl hopes. But I think the same thing applies for the team. Expect they'll probably be pretty good, because Lance Leipold's a great coach and they do have talent. But are we going to go all in on Big 12 contenders? I think, again, because of last year, everybody's just a little bit more like, let's just wait and see with them. So I don't think it's a disrespectful thing. I think it's just maybe we went too far last year, and so we're now more cautious in going too far with Kansas, especially when it's not just about them. It's also about just liking other teams better on paper, which I think is some of it as well.
Yeah. One of the things that's interesting is last year, again, this was not FanDuel. I've just Googled FanDuel about 12 times. It keeps taking me to this year. But remember the media poll last year and how much it's been different each year. Utah, of course, the top pick, K-State, Oklahoma State, KU, and Arizona. And it surely did not end up that way at all. In fact, other than Kansas State, none of those 5 were really in the mix. K-State was the only one. And the poll also, of course, had, Colorado 11th. Arizona State, we know they were 16th. And then BYU was 13th. So Iowa State, they're always like right there, a lot of respect. But not many times have they put up too high just because they were number 6 last year in the preseason rankings.
What were you saying about the draft a second ago?
I don't know how many players from KU got drafted. Obviously, I know Devin Neal did. I wasn't sure about the most out of everybody in the Big 12.
An offensive lineman drafted, I know.
My question was who had the most players drafted from the Big 12 in the NFL draft?
Well, there's a thing called Google. It's
Craig,
great to
I'm
have.
also juggling other things. That's what I was asking. Tell me what they were. Thank you. I'm glad you did. Okay, good.
Getting to. Colorado, Iowa State, Arizona, and Oklahoma State had 4 apiece. So there you go. Kansas had 2, which is right in the middle of the pack. So there you go.
Who had nobody drafted? Does it show?
No.
Okay. Also, Pete Thamel with this note over the weekend about yet another meeting. The Power 4 commissioners met again in person to primarily discuss the future of the college football playoff. They'll meet again on May the 9th. They already met on May the 9th. They'll also have meetings in the future. How many things right now, guys, when it comes to college football and athletics are not finalized, are meetings, are the unknown? It seems like everything is about that. The House settlement, the expansion of the college football playoffs. We hear 16, but we don't know the format. We hear about the format, but we don't know yet. It seemed, am I wrong, that it seemed like a lot of what is the main part of college football is up in the air? My God, can we get to the last weekend or two in August?
Yeah, it'd be great, but it's most of it right now because they don't know. This one, though, they got to pretty much figure out pretty quickly because they got to sign I say pretty quickly, but they want to because they want to know what they're going to be going forward. So, we'll see what it is, but this is the second time in the last week that they've met. The fact that they're doing it means that there's at least some urgency to get it, or the last 10 days, I guess, to get this done. So they're trying to move on it. So we'll see, 16, just 2 years after 12. I kind of like this to see it just stay at 12 for a little bit and see how that goes, as opposed to just go right to 16. But, we knew we couldn't expect that.
They're not going to go. They're not staying at 12, right? No. We know that. They're not. They didn't even think about 14. They're jumping straight to 16. But it just seems like there's so much untied. Paxton goes all of it, Smokey, as far as the various stories that are not settled. The Office fan, the only thing settled for now is conference alignment. There are still some conferences that are kind of trying to figure themselves out, the Pac-12 among others. But yeah, that's that one, at least for now, although there are some constant thoughts, but it seems like that's the one thing that was the unsettled that seems to be settled at this particular time. And speaking of that, that's led to this. How much money are attorneys making when it comes to the Pac-12 and realignment and the ACC and all the stuff they were dealing with? Pac-12, $11.8 million in legal fees during the fiscal year of 2024.
Yeah, not surprised. It's good to be an attorney nowadays if you're in that kind of space. But the ACC had a ton.
They had $12.3 million.
Yeah.
How much of it was internal because of fighting within the conference?
I would say almost all of it. I mean, all of it. And so, and the thing is, they had lawsuits. It wasn't just one lawsuit. They had Clemson and Florida State simultaneously. Clemson and Florida State didn't join the suits because they hadn't gotten to that point yet. Now that they may have gotten there eventually, had they stayed in court. But, like we said for the entire time, this thing was never meant to go to a trial. The ACC versus the malcontents. They were trying to, get to a settlement, which they eventually did. Maybe it wasn't the one that, some of the more cocky people at the beginning thought that they were going to get to, but yeah, not surprised. And I can't wait to see how much all the NCAA spent over the years and all the lawsuits that they've lost when they look back on it and be like, man, we could have just given that money to the players and right away and not lost in court and look so dumb.
So whose record did they break?
I think their own.
I mean, is this something we've been keeping track of that I'm unaware of, is how much the conferences are spending on legal fees, I guess. But, I don't know what record they set, but I guess maybe they put that in an announcement or something. I don't know. But, yeah, that's not surprising at all, given all the stuff that's swirling. I mean, their conference fell apart. They've had to add several teams. They still don't have the final football member to get to the threshold. That's still all being worked out. And I don't know even where that is at this point because I don't know, last I saw if it was anywhere closer than it was the time before that I had checked. So they're still working that out, trying to pull schools from other conferences and say that buyouts don't matter when it comes to the Mountain West. And they're having that whole argument. They had their whole TV deal to negotiate. They've got just all of this going on. So, yeah, I'm sure they've spent a lot of money. I'm not surprised to see they've spent a lot of money in legal fees over the last year, and they'll have probably a lot more coming up this year or just as much. And then maybe after that it settles down a little bit. But I think given all of the things that are in motion, it would be shocking if they didn't have one of their higher, if not the highest, lawyer billing years ever for the Pac-12.
Well, you had lawsuits when UCLA and USC decided they were going to leave, right? They wanted to, how does Cal get some of that money? And then you had the change with more teams moving into the Big 12. Then at the same time, the Stanford and Cal moving into the ACC. It has been phenomenal how much. And John Valade, one of the owners of what we do here at 365 Sports, I brought up when he sent that, okay, how much money has the NCAA, at some point that final number is going to be with the O'Bannon trial or lawsuit, then the, what was it, Alston, and now House versus NCAA. How much money has the NCAA spent over the years, over the last 15 or 20 years, millions upon millions? One law firm alone, Latham and Watkins out of San Francisco, got $2.8 million from the ACC. Highest paid independent contractor was out of San Francisco. So the money, the constant money and legal, it's like we have said this before. And I got to tell you, I don't know if I want to hear yet again about college football playoff committee meeting until it's official, just like the House settlement. But then it's part of what we do covering college sports.
Well, you may not want to hear about it, but we're going to. It's not up to us. They didn't ask us. Honestly, if they had asked, like, if they put together an elite group of podcasters and writers, we might have been able to solve this problem faster. Like, honestly, you give us 3 days, access to all the, catering we need, and a nice little gift bag on the way out. I think we'd be all right to get this thing done. I don't think it would take that much.
Remember, we used to get things from Big 12 Media Days. It was like a backpack or
we got a coffee mug last year.
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah, cool.
Well, I don't drink coffee.
Here's the thing. And look, I already told my brother-in-law I didn't pay him, but we put it in his Christmas stuff. He loved it.
I thought it was really cool, actually.
Yeah.
It's better than most, like the notepad that I'm never going to use that's got the Big 12 logo on it or whatever. I mean, I'll take those. Those are cool. I will probably use them at some point, but the coffee mug was actually pretty cool. And I didn't think it had it on there, but it mentioned the PAC. It didn't mention the ACC, did it? The ACC.
The ACC, I think, spent actually.
They had 12.3 million, so they spent more.
They
spent more because they're also bringing on teams and having to hold on to teams. And
I brought that up as far, but the number was even like a $500,000 more.
The PAC spent 11.8. The ACC spent 12.3. So they actually spent more.
Florida State.
And they had a lot going on as well, obviously. But yeah, I mean, Paul, it sounds good. We all sit here and come up with solutions and everything like that. But the problem with that is that they don't want to go collectively bargain.
No.
So like the stuff that we say that would fix it, they don't want to do that. So no, we wouldn't actually solve it in lesser time because they don't want to do the things that would actually fix things. So it doesn't matter if you're lawyers or podcasters or fans at home or whatever. The things that are there that look like they'd be the best pathways are not what they deem to be the best pathways. And so they continue to fight in court and burn up money on lawyers. And we'll just see when that merry-go-round finally ends. But it's been going on for quite a while and looks like it will for quite a while longer.
I've got two solutions for them. One is collective bargaining. That's the easy one.
They don't want to do it.
The hard one is invent a time machine, go back in time about 40 years. And when this really started to come to a head, give them a stipend that raised with the cost of living, and you would have saved yourself billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Because if you were a college kid getting, let's just say right now, $3,700 a month to be, the backup left guard on the football team, you're probably not going to make much noise if you knew that that's what you were going to get when you got your scholarship. Now, going from zero to millions is the problem, and the reason that happens is when you have the Marie Antoinette attitude the NCAA had for all that time and said, let them eat cake. When they come for you, they're chopping your head off. Like, that's what happens.
Marie Antoinette was a part of a song with Queen.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it was Queen.
But yes, so.
You mentioned I hadn't heard that name since probably that song. Well, one of the things that's interesting is this is from Amanda Kristovich. Will the House versus NCAA settlement actually end pay-for-play NIL deals? At the very end of this article, here's a quote. A lot of athletic directors I talk to are really, really looking for the House settlement to come through because they believe it's going to create normalcy. It's going to expose cheaters and make everybody play by the rules. This is from a collective operative who spoke with a condition of anonymity. He told Front Office Sports that's not what's going to happen.
No, it's not. And it doesn't block deals. It just puts them through the clearinghouse. Now, in theory, the clearinghouse would clear out other things. But if you figure out, like, all it's going to take is a couple deals to get blocked that are of, shady origin. And then you're going to go, okay, well, why are they blocked? And they'll say because of this. And then you make a small legal determination that, no, I, in fact, am somebody who wants this random person to advertise for me. That's it. I don't none of this. None of this is going to get stopped by this settlement. And they'd be wise not to really push it all that hard if they don't want to get sued again.
Bracket Cat, I don't have the mug. I did not bring it with me because I don't drink coffee. I probably could have put it up as a collective behind me when I do a Zoom deal, but I would have given it to you if you would have asked. But I didn't even realize we got a coffee mug last year.
Yeah, we did, and it was very cool looking, and I'll try to remember to bring it. I don't really have space behind me that you could see it all that well, but I do need to probably shake up that ledge behind me, actually, make it more of my own maybe if it was more behind me. But, yeah, if there's a space to do that, I'll maybe bring that mug. But it's really nice. It's a really cool deal, and one of the better gifts I've gotten at some of these media days outside of, I don't know, I think like one year they gave away like OGO backpacks, which are pretty expensive for backpacks. They're really nice though, and they gave those away at some event. That was one of the nicer gifts. Bowl gifts are usually pretty good, but for media days, that coffee mug was pretty cool, so I'll try and remember that.
Now, Big 12, the year that A&M said everything was good, they gave us a really nice backpack. Cotton Bowl does a backpack. The Super Bowl used to do a stroller, like a laptop, like business stroller, and those days are gone. And, yeah, Craig, you can get rid of the Kim Mulkey statue behind you if you want to, if you put the mug up there. And then this one here on how do FCS schools help pay their players? FCS revenue sharing, your team beats an FBS opponent, and half of the payout gets split between your players.
Yeah, but
some of those are like $1 million, $2
million. That'd be great for the players, but this only happens once in a while. So it's not something, and go out and get this is the game they probably play harder in early in the season than maybe even the rivalry game because they're all trying to show something. But a lot of times you're not scheduled because they think that's even an option. As a matter of fact, instead, better than this, if you want to keep playing FCS schools, if you have a guarantee game, then you have to pay extra money that go to the players. That's what I would say. The school, Michigan has to pay the extra $500,000 that can go to the players
if they lose.
No, if just in general.
Oh, okay.
Just in general, because I like this idea from Sam. The problem is that it would very rarely happen.
It happens, I think, a lot, doesn't it? FCS beat
a lot. Well, compared to the amount of FCS teams that play FBS teams, it's not a lot.
Well, Marshall just did something the other day.
Marshall's not an FCS team.
Oh, they're not. You're right. You're talking about North Dakota State and teams like that. Yeah. Okay. Now, all right. Yeah. No, you're right on that. It would have to be that one conference. That entire conference seems like they probably win one of those every year. We'll get to the Big 12 baseball tournament, which is starting this week. Also, news on the Big 12 tournament starting next year. We'll have that as well. By the way, congratulations, Texas Tech added 2 more Big 12 championships over the weekend. Both men and women won the team track and field championship. So they've now added yet a couple of more to their mantle place. When we come back, we'll hear from Shahan Raja. Also, we'll look later on. We have Shane Ryan on Scotty Scheffler winning the PGA championship. Much more to get to. This is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, used to be, and need to be. As you get older, usually around the early to mid to upper 40s, things change. And you might just be that one out of every 3 men with symptomatic issues of low testosterone, which could be your sex drive. It could be your energy. It could be your sleep habits. It could be your fit. You have a good exercise routine. You'd have a good diet, but you've added maybe a pound or two, a little bit around your waist, and you don't even know why, no matter how hard you work out or how well you eat. That could be from low testosterone creating that. So a lot of symptoms, and you hear a lot about ED, sex drive, etc. It could be the full meal deal. 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. Contact Dr. Kent Petty at pettycliniclowt.com.
Big with Employee Pricing Plus at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive home a new Chrysler Dodge Jeep or Ram with smoking hot deals that slay the competition. Only at Allen Samuels. You're going to love it here.
Come by. Let's be friends.
I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
The Jeep Celebration event is on at Allen Samuels. Get the luxurious 2024 Jeep Grand Wagoneer with a huge $13,000 dealer discount plus 0% financing. Big savings, legendary Jeeps at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Shahad Jararaja, CBS Sports, will join us here in just a moment. He posted at the end of last week the Big 12 post-spring power rankings, and we will discuss those with him. There is we got to bring this up. Do you have the softball tweet, Garrett, Texas A&M and Liberty? Did you?
Yeah, hang on one second.
I don't know if it's been a more painful spring. There are some sports at A&M that have been successful this spring, but they were the number 1 ranked team in softball. By the way, Texas Tech remains the only team left in the Big 12. They moved on. They, of course, put a lot of commitment financially and with the roster, and it worked out. They won the regular season title. Liberty, in 3 games, I don't know what the total combined runs were, but it seemed like each game was 12-10 or something like that. Liberty goes into College Station, and it's the first time ever that a number 1 seed has lost in the opening round, and A&M which baseball, of course, just completely blew a tire. Liberty with the win in College Station inside, and they now move on to the Super Regionals.
I hate that their bad luck with football has now like spread like the chicken pox over to every other
chicken
thing. I mean, it's unbelievable. There's not an athletic department in the country that, when they have expectations and the fans get really excited about something, falls harder than poor Texas A&M. They just don't know how to deal with success. And it's not any fault of their coaches or their players. I don't know what it is. It's, it's a curse. I don't know what they did. Maybe it was stealing Bevo all those years ago. I have no idea.
Did they ever give Bevo?
Yeah, they did.
That? Okay.
They did. But, the thing is, they borrowed Bevo. I don't know what the curse is. They've got a curse, though.
It is maybe that Texas is better, along with
Liberty. It's just they can't.
But they pounded everybody. Their offense is amazing. Normally in softball, you have one good pitcher. That's enough. It's not so much the case anymore. Shahan Jararaja, CBS Sports. I even saw your reaction to that. Shahan, man, they just can't get out of their own way, can they, the Aggies?
Yeah, you start to feel bad for them a little bit. I mean, it's been over and over, especially this year. And, obviously they weren't all that excited about Texas coming into the SEC, but for Texas to come in, immediately have success in football, immediately have success in women's basketball, immediately have success in so many other key sports, win the SEC in baseball, like it's got to be so tough to watch right now as Texas A&M, who came into the year in so many of these sports with high expectations, just continue to fall continuously on their face.
What do you think their hang up is with football in particular, since that's the sport you cover? Like, and part of it is the reason I think some of the other sports cover is they like sacrifice some of that for football, which nobody has put more money into football and gotten less out of it than Texas A&M.
It's a good question. I think that there's a couple pieces to it, right? Like, I think that one, I actually really like the hire of Mike Elko. I think that he kind of gets back to their roots, but I do feel like during the Kevin Sumlin era and even into the Jimbo Fisher era, you felt like Texas A&M was kind of getting away from who they are. Obviously I grew up in the state of Texas in DFW, and Texas A&M, one, is an underdog, and two, is a blue collar place. So where all of a sudden you go and you all of a sudden are the school of swag copters and Kevin Sumlin and Johnny Manziel, like it never quite fit to me. And then you bring in Jimbo Fisher, who obviously is a coach who frankly was like seen as beyond reproach in many cases because of the contract that he signed and because of the attention he brought. Well, I felt like Mike Elko was a little bit of going back. He reminded me a lot of the RC Slocum hire, a guy who's a defensive coordinator, just a football coach, going to really instill some toughness. Now, again, you didn't necessarily see it in year one the entire season, but I do think long-term that's going to make a lot of sense. But, the other thing too is that especially when you look at that 2022 recruiting class, of course, they have the number one class of all time that season. I think that there was so much focus on trying to project something out to the world that there wasn't as much regard for what does this team need? What does this roster need? How do we get the most out of these players? And you look at so many of the players in that class, they had their best seasons after they left Texas A&M. So I think getting back to more of a blue-collar mindset, a developmental mindset, and still being able to do it with 5 stars makes a lot of sense. I actually made the comparison whenever they hired Colin Klein as their offensive coordinator. I think the best thing that Texas A&M could be that would fit right within their identity and right within the culture of that place is be Kansas State with 5 stars, right? They hire Colin Klein as their offensive coordinator from Kansas State, of course. I think that has the potential to be a perfect fit if they're willing to see it through.
Shahan, I saw that when glanced at your time, I just kind of see what you've been talking about. And Utah, you were on a podcast talking about the Utes, and we were talking about Big 12 championship odds and things like that earlier. Where is Utah in terms of entering the 2025 season in your head? We know where they were in everybody's heads last year. We were all drastically wrong about where we thought they were actually going to be. But what have you made of their offseason? And are you as down in the dumps on them as some are, or you think there's going to be a little bit of a resurgence this year?
Yeah, they're maybe the toughest program to project in the Big 12 for me next year. I mean, other than the sort of Colorado conversation, but because look, defensively, this is a great program. I don't know if they're going to be as good defensively as they were last year, but they should still be a top 3 defense in the Big 12. And offensively, I mean, they've got some incredible pieces. Their tackles, Caleb Lomu and Spencer Fano, are maybe the best combination in all of college football. I've seen some places project both as top 15 NFL draft picks. So you add that aspect. You add, of course, they bring in Devin Dampier, the quarterback from New Mexico, along with his offense coordinator, Jason Beck. The big question to me is going to be, what is his upside as a passer? If he's an average Big 12 passing quarterback, I mean, look, he was a 1,000-yard rusher at New Mexico as well. So I think that that's going to give them a little bit of a higher floor than before. And again, I mean, look, when you look at the past 2 years, it wasn't just down offense. It wasn't just inconsistent quarterback play. It was some of the worst offense and quarterback play in the entire country. So I do think that there is the upside for them to get back into that Big 12 conversation. Right now, I have them in that middle class of the Big 12, kind of that third tier maybe of teams that are certainly good enough to make it a little bit higher in the conference, but you just can't project them there at this point. But again, it's going to come down to how quickly can that offense come along and how ready is Devin Dampier as a passer.
Shahan, there's 16 teams, and I don't know how many tiers you mentioned, maybe the third tier. Are there 4 tiers? Which of the tiers in this bipolar conference is the deepest, has the most teams in it? Those who we think are going to be pretty good, those right on the edge, those who we have no idea about, and those who we think are not going to be good at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, it's probably that second tier, right? Because you have some of the contenders at the top. I think that you put Arizona State in that group. I think that you put, Texas Tech with what they've done this offseason. I think Baylor is a really good case. But like that second group of teams that has a chance to move up is so big. I mean, you're talking about both of the Kansas schools. You're talking about Iowa State off of what they did last year. I think that Utah is right on the cusp of that conversation. And again, I mean, that doesn't even get into the TCUs, for example, who won 9 games last year. There's so many teams that are maybe half a step from me outside of that contender conversation. But that's what makes it so tough. Again, because you look last year, I mean, again, I mentioned a team like Colorado. Obviously, I don't know if they're going to be able to replicate a 9-win season, but like if they are anywhere close to that, they could once again get into this conversation. Again, like we've seen teams that obviously have some upside. I think about a team like Oklahoma State, who last year obviously has a really miserable year. Well, they bring back some guys and have a really good transfer class. So like, I think that tier 2 has to be the deepest of the group, because again, once you get into tier 3 and tier 4, like I think you're talking about a relatively small number of teams. I mean, that 4th tier, especially of teams that are bad. I mean, it's UCF probably, it's Arizona probably. And other than that, I don't know that anybody is firmly there. So I think that tier 2 is the tier of strivers. And I think that ultimately you're potentially looking at 6 or 7 teams in that group.
Which team do you think that in the middle of it has the most questions? Is it Colorado? Because quarterback, actually, I think Caden Salter, Julian Lewis, like whatever works out there was probably going to be fine for them. It's just they just lost a generational player and some superb athletes around him.
Yeah, I think what makes Colorado so confusing is that the last 2 years, and I think you could even go back even a little earlier than that at Jackson State, Deion Sanders' teams have been built around doing one thing, and that's featuring his sons and Travis Hunter. And, last year, obviously, they throw the ball a whole ton. They throw the ball to Travis Hunter a whole ton to try to get him the stats to win the Heisman Trophy. And obviously, they have a really good year. They win 9 games. Well, now all of a sudden, because like you said, Caden Salter comes in. I think he's a solid quarterback. Julian Lewis is a really talented young player. But it's probably not going to be Shedeur Sanders, at least right away. And the other piece of this, too, is they have a good wide receiver room, but they don't have a Travis Hunter in that room. Somebody's going to, be one of the best receivers in the country, not even getting into, obviously, what he does on the defensive side of the ball. So what's fascinating to me is that this is probably going to look more like a real traditional football team. And I think that the most underrated aspect of this team is on defense. I mean, their defense coordinator, Robert Livingston, I think is a rising star in this industry. He became the highest paid assistant coach in Colorado history this offseason. They've got a good defensive line. They've got some pieces at linebacker and in the defensive backfield. So, potentially that allows them to have a floor that gets them into the bowl conversation. Then obviously on the offensive side, again, it's going to be, does somebody emerge at running back for the second straight year? They're losing their top rusher. They're losing so many of their top receivers. Their offensive line never truly came together, though at least many of them are back. So it's just going to be something completely new when Colorado takes the field in 2025. And I think that's what makes it so complicated, is there really is no pathway to them being able to replicate exactly the kind of football that they played in 2024.
So we know that there's very little room for slipping up if you're the Big 12. You got to be pretty close to perfect to ensure that you get maybe the maximized potential spots. And we know last year, just the one playoff spot everybody's worried about. How big is the non-con, Shahan? Like, people are downplaying the significance of the regular season, but you've got games like Baylor and Auburn. You got TCU, North Carolina, Cincy, Nebraska, Colorado, Georgia Tech. Not the biggest, hugest matchups in the world, but how important is that non-con for the Big 12 in particular when you look at the bigger picture?
Well, I think that you probably can't play your way in to playoff spots in the non-conference, but I do think you can definitely play your way out of playoff spots in the non-conference. And, I think that we've talked about it before, but Baylor might have two of the most important games for the Big 12 next season, playing both Auburn, an SEC team, and SMU, a team that was in the college football playoff last year. Obviously, TCU also gets SMU. So I think that picking up a win there would be really, really important and could shape the seasons of both of those teams and maybe both of those conferences. So I think you need to have success. And here's the other piece too, is that, I think that I've been on the record. I feel like Big 12 teams were largely undervalued in 2024. Well, the way that you fix that is you win games against these other conferences. It just allows you the opportunity to build up some credibility, to have, even some bragging rights. One of the things that's very important to remember is that in the college football playoff selection process, they do compare results of mutual opponents. And so, again, if you're in a situation where whatever team, that SMU or Florida State or whoever is contending for a playoff spot with TCU, and you have that mutual North Carolina game, well, maybe that becomes a big deal when it's time to make playoff selection. So I think that sort of thing really matters. I think it's huge for the perception of the Big 12 as a conference. And the reality is, right, like, we can have all these teams that we feel quite good about, but until people believe that they can go out and compete with some of the best teams in the country, which, again, I think Arizona State proved that they could last year against Texas, you have to stack up those kinds of results in order to ultimately put yourself in a position to have multiple teams in the field.
How ironic is it your alma mater, speaking of Baylor, they used to have the worst non-conference schedule in America because they were terrible, and they wanted to try to get 4 wins in non-conference, win a couple of games, and get to a bowl game, right, in the Big 12. That this year they have 2 games that matter quite a bit, and it's been that way. They had Utah, Colorado, BYU before, not Colorado, but BYU and Utah before they got into the Big 12. How just for you refreshing is their non-conference schedule?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, right? Like, obviously, I came to school in 2012, and it was very recent that that Baylor was in a position where they wanted to play competitive games because bowl eligibility felt like something that was reasonable. And so I think it's huge, first of all, for Baylor that they are in this position, but it adds another level of pressure as well. I mean, again, 10 years ago, they were in a position where it was a fundamental structural flaw for that program to obviously be playing some of those non-conference games. Well, now they're in a position to be playing national matchups really early. And I really look at that Auburn game especially. It's a Friday night game. It's going to be a nationally televised game, national platform, really not up against anything else of value. And so if Baylor comes out and plays a great game, that's going to shape in a lot of ways the way that people view this team heading into the Big 12. And of course, like I mentioned, also shape the way that people see the Big 12 heading forward. So I think these are huge opportunities. Now, again, look, here's the reality too. Here's the downside of it, right? Is if you lose that game against Auburn and lose that game against SMU, first of all, you're probably already eliminated from the playoff before Big 12 play even really starts. And second, if you do go on or run the Big 12, it probably weighs down the valuation of your conference. So these are games that you have to deliver on. But I think it's really exciting that Baylor has stepped up to the plate and is willing to do it.
Shahan, Do you think that we will get any kind of legal finality this week when it comes to the house settlement?
Yeah, we've been hearing some rumors that it could be coming in the next 24 to 48 hours. Now, look, last week we got the final filings, and at this point, it's in the hands of Judge Claudia Wilken. She will ultimately have the ability to say whether she approves of the settlement or whether she doesn't. Of course, the last thing that she really brought to the table was the idea that she wanted to have a little bit more clarity over grandfathering in players on roster so that there wouldn't just have to be a mass cutting of players to get under that 105 roster limit. So that's the last piece that really has to be worked out. She has to file through some of the objections that have been filed as well by some of the outside parties. So again, we're in a position now where we think it might be coming in the next couple of days. But again, ultimately, the legal system works on its own timeline. And we came to court for the final settlement on April 7th. It's still not done as yet. So you can never be too sure about anything.
Yeah, I get in just reading the tea leaves that they expect Judge Wilken to fire something off this week before Memorial Day weekend. And then again, I don't know what it means. Do we get to celebrate, or we just go, oh God, this now means this or that? I don't know, but it does seem like this is the week, and I hope to God it is, don't you? That we can. I don't know if we can move on though, because it might be other things that splinter off whatever the decision is.
Well, I think that what is most complicated for any college football program about this moment is that everybody is planning for July 1st to be the moment that they can opt into rev share. So like teams are already raising this money. Players are already signing contracts. There kind of isn't a contingency plan if this doesn't happen. Because look, let's just say that it gets rejected and they don't have the settlement done before that July 1st deadline. Well, like, again, that's $20 million that's been allocated within the athletic department. You can't necessarily just move all that money to external factors. You know, that's not really how it works. And so you end up in a position where potentially you're screwing players over with contracts that can't be enforceable. And now I will say, as far as I've heard, every rev share contract has language in it that clarifies this is dependent on the idea of House v. NCAA being settled. But certainly you'd be in a position where you have a lot of really unhappy players and maybe an untenable situation if this doesn't get resolved. So certainly I think that everybody wants this to be complete just from that perspective so that we can at least take that first step. And look, there's going to be new challenges and new lawsuits and all this sort of stuff after this happens as well. But at least this gives us a first framework to move into the pay-for-play era, and at least once we get there, we can deal with some of the other issues.
How long did you, before you put out the top 16 or 1 through 16 power poll, how long did you like sit on that, or have to go back and tweak it a little bit? Like you've written many articles in your lifetime, and you just want to make sure it's just right. Was it hard to just say, okay, no, damn it, this is it?
Well, the first thing that I did was I put it together without really like thinking too hard about it, I guess, right? Like I did it more off of the top of my head. Then, you know, I went through, obviously kind of clarified it a bit by looking at some other projections and stuff. I compared it to the Vegas odds. I mean, just to see like where I was at. And by the way, FanDuel had Utah way higher than just about anybody else that I've seen at this point. But, you know, again, the first thing that you want to do when you put together a rankings like this is making sure you're doing your due diligence, because you don't want to forget something dumb because everybody's going to notice it if you do. But the other thing too is, again, like there are going to be teams that you're wrong about. Like that's just reality. I picked Arizona State last place last year, but you want to make sure that you have a clear logic for yourself, at least, that, hey, this is what I like about this team. This is what I don't like about this team. This is the questions that I have. You know, I tend to take it from more of, I guess I would consider a 50th percentile look at teams as opposed to what's their ceiling and what's their floor. And so as long as you know that you have kind of this logic to how you're approaching things, you can live with the results.
Yep, absolutely. And who knows, with the way the history is, it could be completely flipped before it's all said and done. Last year was a great example. Thank you, Shahan. Have a great day. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Shahan Jararaja, CBS Sports, with us on his power poll. And this is what it was, by the way. His top 1 through 12, 1 through 16. Arizona State, Texas Tech, BYU. Craig, you had mentioned that maybe they were missing from that FanDuel list. Baylor, K-State, TCU, 1 through 6. Iowa State, Kansas, Utah, 9. Colorado, 10. And the last 6 are Cincinnati, West Virginia, Houston, Arizona, Oklahoma State, and UCF. So he's not sold that Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State turned things around.
I guess he's on my wavelength there. You know, I said I would die on that hill, that they wouldn't make it.
Gundy's a good dude. I know he's done some things, said some things that people haven't appreciated, but I'd like to see them. I know Wet Blanket and I are close. I hope that happens for Oklahoma State. Who knows? We don't know. And UCF, by the way, era number 2 with Scott Frost at 16. After that, what they thought was a pretty good start with Malzahn, and then of course now as they wait to see how they react to Scott Frost coming back.
I mean, it was an okay start. It wasn't like anything like that. Like they were competing for the title right away. They were okay under Malzahn. They were not much better than that. They were certainly nothing close to what they're trying to replicate now with Scott Frost. And I think there was a transition period where you don't expect to be ruling the roost right away, and it's going to take a little bit of time to get your bearings about you. But I think, UCF is still in that process, and I think there's a lot of questions that come with Scott Frost being back. And I think in a league full of quarterbacks where you feel pretty good about most teams, who's their quarterback? Y'all even know who's competing for the starting job in Orlando? I doubt it, because there's just not a conversation, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of questions about them. I'd have them down there at the bottom. And you know what? If they were to sit there and be that Arizona State team this year, then Scott Frost deserves Coach of the Year, because there are a lot of question marks there. Not that they can't overcome them, but, yeah, I mean, compared to most of the other teams, not all the other teams in the league, yeah, that's a team that you could definitely see there at the bottom of the rankings right now.
When did UCF join the Big 12? Was it 22?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. They were in a bowl game a couple of years with Malzahn. Not a great start. I said good start. You're right. It was an okay start. They played and lost to Duke and then Georgia Tech in back-to-back bowl games in 22, 23. Last year, of course, it fell apart. It did fall apart. When we come back, we have much to get to. One of the guests that we have coming up will be Shane Ryan on the PGA Championship near the end of the 4 o'clock hour. But ranking the greatest teams in college football since 2000. That came out today, and it's, I would have thought, man, that's easy. No, it's not, because there's some good ones with what you have. We'll get to who is in the top 5 or so and get your feedback as well. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium, we hosted our annual Academic All-Stars banquet. Man, the staff was fantastic. Bria was the one in charge along with her staff, and they set us up perfectly. It is a gorgeous setting to host a banquet. Any kind of it doesn't have to be like a banquet with food or dinner. It could be just an event that you have a guest speaker, etc. We had all the above. They do a great job. The view of looking outside McLean Stadium at the Brazos and the bridge right there that covers I-35, it was fantastic. The food was great. The way they set that up was great. The amenities were great. It was a fantastic event. And the Baylor Club, any kind of special event, could be graduation, which of course you probably already have set that, but they do that. They have speaking engagements. They have those, or business type events. That too. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium off I-35 in Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions, IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Always good to have lists. This time of the year, late spring, early summer, there's lists about preseason. We just had Shahan on about his power poll. We could all do that, and we will. And when we get the letter from the Big 12 about media days and our preseason poll, as I did last year, we did an entire segment sharing my Big 12 football IQ, which was not very high of what I had 1 through 16, but not many were really good at it. All right, so greatest teams of all time. You can go back.
2000s. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Can I set it up?
Yeah, no,
okay.
go ahead,
Greatest teams of all time can be debated for all time. It's hard enough to do that when you want to include somebody from the 1960s. Of course, there's always a debate about the black athlete. Were they available during that time? Should that count? There's always teams throughout college football that we can look and go, that's the best team ever. There are teams prior to 2000 that are part of that conversation. However, theathletic.com ranked the best college football team since 2000. It doesn't take long to get to 2001. And, of course, that Miami team that had, 20 guys or so in the NFL draft. Then you have Joe Burrow and LSU, who came out of nowhere to dominate the way they did. Vince Young and UT at number 3. Let's just stop right there. Because, my God, could that be a conversation?
Yeah, and I don't want to be a spoiler, but I do have a bone to pick here. I think that 2005 USC is probably better than some of the national champions on here.
I was going to mention that, Greg.
These are the best national champions.
Number 13.
No, 2005 is USC is number 13.
Number 13.
Oh, are they on there?
No, they're on there. No.
Okay, cool.
I actually have a little letter. I was going to say that at the end. You could have lost, like 2005 USC, on what was just a once-in-a-lifetime player and still have been maybe 2, 3, or 4. But let's go over those top 3, first of all, with the Hurricanes. And is this the last great team they had during that run from the early 80s until that time?
Yeah, I mean, and if you notice, they're on here again, and we'll talk about it in a second, as like the prequel to that one. But 2001 Miami, to me, like before, usually I will read the list, how they have it from 25 to 1. But when they do these lists, and I respect Stuart an immense deal as a college football writer.
Stuart Mandel,
who wrote this, who created this list. I always go to the front and go, okay, don't try to make an argument for me that somebody was better than 2001 Miami. Because to me, there's not. Like, there's absolutely not. I am very biased because I did see them play in person, and they were so amazing. But it's just when you go down the roster and the NFL Hall of Famers, All Pros, Pro Bowlers, and what could have been with Sean Taylor, all on that roster, 2000 Miami also included in that. But 2001 Miami was just a murderer's row. And the only player that you would go ho-hum about was their quarterback, Ken Dorsey, and he was a Heisman finalist.
Yep.
Probably shouldn't have been based on but it was quarterback. At least that's how they voted, and how it was. Like, there were other guys on that roster who, rightfully could have maybe been there if you had a more open view of it. But that team was so ridiculously loaded and lethal and scary that, to me, like, the list should be the top 25 teams since 2000, other than 2001 Miami, because no one may ever top that, especially now, because if you try to work out the dollar value of that team today, it would be impossible for even Georgia to do it.
Well, they had the 26-24 win against Virginia Tech, and they beat Florida State 18-7. Those are the only teams that even got within their atmosphere during that entire season. Craig?
Yeah, well, I'm glad I was wrong about 05 USC. I scanned that list a couple times, and I just went right over them. So I'm glad that he did include teams that lost the national title, because I still think that, some of the runner-ups are still some of the better teams, top 25 teams we've seen in college, and that would certainly apply to that USC team. And if the result had been flipped, same thing for that Texas team. So with that out of the way, I'll try and be better. But 01 Miami is just the creme de la creme of college football teams. I think the closest we've seen to that are 2 and 3, as far as just the buzz, the hype, everything surrounding just sort of the aura of those teams. I mean, Miami has always been a school with swagger, but I mean, that 01 team was just so loaded to the gills with talent, and had some close calls, as you mentioned. But
by the way, I want to correct myself. I said Florida State 18-7. It was Boston College. Go ahead.
Had some close calls, as you mentioned, but was pretty damn nasty. So, yeah, I don't think any surprise that Miami 01 is on here. Used to be a conversation about 95 Nebraska. I get this since 2000 about greatest teams of all time, and I don't really recall much of the others that were mentioned pre-2001 outside of 95 Nebraska, because I think that conversation was kind of theirs until 01 Miami, just in my opinion. But since then, I do think 19 LSU and 05 Texas have been about as close as you can get to kind of having that same feel, generating the same types of talent onto the next level, and just being memorable. So, yeah, 01 Miami is still that team, and I wonder how long they'll remain that team. Probably for a long time, but who knows in this era what kind of super team can be built up.
Been basically a quarter of a century since it's been 23 or 4 years. What I look at, though, and this is the only part where I go, wait a minute, and they outscored their opponents by whatever they wanted. They beat one team ranked in the top 10, and that was an overmodulated Nebraska team who had their brains beat in by Colorado 2 or 3 weeks before. They beat numbers 11, 14, 15, and 13. They beat number 4 Nebraska to win the national title, who should not have been in that game. That's the only thing I see. If there is a blemish, and that's not really a negative, it's not their fault who they played, but there was one team ranked inside the top 10 who they beat during that season where they dominated.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many teams on this list I'd love to see play each other because of the matchups and styles. And just taking in the top 5, 01 Miami and 05 Texas would be interesting, because 01 Miami would have had the outside pass rush to maybe make Vince Young somewhat human. like where you just can't. I mean, the pictures in my head of that national championship game of not just Brian Cushing, but other guys who wound up in the NFL and played long times on defense, just bouncing off of Vince Young.
Or not touching
him.
Yeah.
Miami, I would think that 0-1 Miami team had the size and speed in the front seven to where that would have made him. And again, we saw it in the NFL. Like, they had all those NFL guys all over the place. Like, that maybe would have contained him a little bit. But, of the most dominant, like, Miami had the best, like, top to bottom roster. But on this list, I mean, Vince Young, as far as like college football players on this list, might have been the one I've seen play that was the most. Like, I don't know what you do. Like, how do you figure out how to stop him?
Well, USC just needed to figure out one more time, or just pick up a first down.
Well, I mean, yeah, or
he was as good as I've ever seen when it comes to big moments in a game.
But they didn't stop him. I mean, they just was just a like that was a I mean, there's a high scoring game, so that was just how, like, okay, can we do more than they do? And it wasn't that case. So yeah, but there are teams throughout this list that I would love to see play each other, especially when we get down into the middle of it.
Craig, anything else on Miami 0-1 and Texas at 0-5? That Joe Burrow team, somebody mentioned their defense. Garrett, was their defense? They didn't have to have a defense.
I mean, their defense was good. You had a great secondary. You had Derek Stingley, who was a freshman, who I'll go back to that game against Oklahoma. Watching him against CeeDee Lamb was ridiculous. He completely shut down CeeDee Lamb. But their offense, you couldn't deal with those receivers. Now, unless you had a team like Miami there who could actually compete and shut them down, maybe. But that team ruined my fandom. It set the bar so high that I can't even enjoy watching LSU because they haven't been able to compare to that.
All right. You wanted, Craig, you jumped the gun a little bit on that, but I had a note about 13th ranked, and that's way too low. The 0-5 USC was a Vince Young scramble, right? 4th down and goal, basically no time left away from being, where would they be if they had won that game? At number 2?
No, probably number 3.
Yeah.
Where 0-5 Texas is. I think 19 LSU, the offense took all the headlines for the most part, but Garrett's right. They still had a good defense. Dave Aranda got out of town after that, and there was a lot of complaining about that defense. But I'll maintain there's these people that have this idea, and there's very few teams that can accomplish this. They're probably mostly on this list of like, I want the 19 LSU offense, and I want like the 0-1 Miami defense. And it's like, you just can't have that. It doesn't work. You can't just shut everybody out and score 60 points a game. It doesn't work that way. At some point, your offense is so good, they're scoring so much, your defense is going to be exhausted and on the field all the time. And I think that's what happened somewhat with LSU's defense. But, 0-5 USC might even be at number 2. If you remember how hyped up that team was, they were as hyped up as any team I can remember ever. And Texas was hyped, but not to that degree that I think many people thought that they were going to beat that USC team. So, and I think we all expected a great game, and it turned out to be better than ever could have been imagined unless you were a USC fan because of the result. But, 0-5 USC would probably be right there next to 0-4 USC in that top 5 somewhere.
Yeah, Texas's hype largely outside the state of Texas came after 0-5, right? Like inside the state of Texas, they were always, the 800-pound gorilla. But outside, it was always like, well, they're fine, but they hadn't won anything until then, right? In a very long time. USC, though, I think that especially coming off of 0-4 and then the years before where they just kind of put out Heisman Trophy winners, but coming off of 0-4, and then that team was just so amazing, and Reggie Bush was all over the place, and the fact that they're in L.A., and you had L.A. sports writers caring about college football for 5 consecutive years. If you listen to Colin Cowherd back then,
I was going to say it's the same dude I think of. I mean, the tissue. The amount of money he must have spent that year, it must have been incredible.
Yeah, I mean, just exactly. On all of the USC. Pete Carroll's the best. You would just hear it all the time. And Texas and Mac Brown. For once in Texas history, they went into that game not being a team that everyone talked about like they were some sort of, gods. And
I actually think that no football team, and I know that this is not year in and year out, seems to thrive when they are not favored. Then against, even when they were mediocre at 7-5 a few times, or when in the wilderness, they seem to, whatever reason, the wins in their history of that program, when they are playing in a big game or they're just not supposed to win, they find a way to win.
And that was Mac Brown's thing, is that he brought some down-home folksiness to a place that is no longer that. And, so it was all that. But, like, the L.A. thing was, which Austin can't claim anymore, of like, oh, we're just little old, Austin, Texas. Well, that secret's out and been out for a long time. And it was probably even in 2005, but people didn't really think of it that way. But the LA intersection of that, where there are things in towns like LA and Miami they only care about when they're good.
Yep.
And college sports is very much that. In LA, it is in Miami as well. And so when you have an LA-based team like USC that's so good and it's got all these rock star players, and it's just the hype rolls a little bit more. And I remember thinking before, like, have you guys not seen, like, did you not watch all the Vince Young games? Like, this guy's going to be tough to stop for these guys. But even I thought USC was going to win that game. And then it was one of the greatest games that you'll ever see in your life.
2004 Auburn, underrated. Ronnie Brown, Cadillac Williams in the backfield. Had a strong defense. They should have played for the Natty. They did not get in. They were unbeaten and did not get a chance to play. That's back when it was the BCS, correct? It started like in 2000 or whatever, 2001. They, according to General Ursus, who's a Tennessee fan, saying about don't forget 04 Auburn. 04 Auburn on this list is 21. And again, this is something you could debate and discuss forever and ever.
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, they didn't even get a chance to play for the title because of the system at the time. So, to be undefeated, and especially in the SEC, I mean, you hear how hard it is, and for a team to run through that entire league in the early 2000s, just mightily impressive, and a victim of the situation they had, as far as the postseason at that time. So they had an expanded playoff. That might have been the team that went and won it all. I think they certainly proved that they were as deserving, if not more deserving, because Oklahoma laid an egg that year, and it made it all just look even worse than it already probably felt for Auburn fans. So, yeah, that's a good call on them. I mean, good call by Stewart to have them still on here, and that's why I was pointing out at the beginning when I didn't see USC, but now I can start to see some of the teams that didn't win the Natty. And 04 Auburn is right there near the top of the list of the what-ifs as well, I think.
Hey, their last, 3 of their last 4 games, they beat number 8 Georgia, number 15 Tennessee, and number 9 Virginia Tech. Of course, that was the bowl game that they played, but 2 of their last 3 were ranked teams. What really, I think, probably ate them up, they beat Tennessee twice during the year, was that, and this is no fault of their own, the way the schedule fell for them. That was a down year for Bama. It was a down year for Ole Miss. They played Kentucky and Arkansas. And so the computer was just like, nope, don't like.
Yeah, the decimal points. By the way, as good as 2001 Miami was, of course, the next year they were 12-1, lost on a controversial play in the end zone, right, to Ohio State. Was that the Maurice Claret Ohio State Buckeyes who beat them in the national championship?
What did you say,
game?
2000 Miami?
2002 Miami.
Yeah, 2002 Miami. Yeah, that was 2002. 2000 Miami was wide right 3 Miami that won, but lost to Washington earlier in the year, and the BCS computer somehow left them out. And that was good news for Florida State and
great news for
Oklahoma. But Miami probably should have, looking back, at least been in that game.
All right. Anything else on that? Garrett, you have anything else to say?
No, I mean, I was thinking about that 04 team with Auburn. I feel like they beat LSU, and LSU was number 1 that year as well. That team was really, really good.
When they beat them, they were number 5.
Okay.
But, yeah, they might have wound up number 1 at some point that year.
Yeah, I mean, Paul mentioned the Bama being down and all that, but I'm looking, they beat number 5 LSU, number 10 Tennessee, number 8 Georgia, number 15 Tennessee. So there's 3 top 10 wins, 4 top 15 wins. Oklahoma beat number 5 Texas, number 20 Oklahoma State, and number 22 A&M. So, hey, thanks for giving my Sooners a chance there, even though they just messed themselves like they had the last 10 national title tries they've had. It's not quite 10, but it's close. It's close. But yeah, that's still confusing kind of looking back on it. And you can see where that's still a sticker, a burr in the side of Auburn fans for sure.
Oklahoma 2000, the team that came out of completely nowhere with Bob Stoops. I think it was in his, second or third year. Josh Heupel was the quarterback. They had a great defense. Florida State, of course, in the championship game, but that was a team that came out of nowhere. Those are since 2000. Ranking Stuart Mandel, theathletic.com, the best teams in college football.
So where would 95 Nebraska be on there now?
All right, I'm glad you asked. So I mentioned.
And is there anybody else? Like, is there another team prior to the 2000s? Because I know that people will have their own individual schools, especially the bigger schools have been successful. People will be able to rattle off like 17 Bama or, something like that. But the only team that I can recall nationally that you go like 95 Nebraska and everybody knows what the hell you're talking about, the same way they know when you're talking about 01 Miami or like 19 LSU or 05 Texas, like those types of years, who is like a glaringly obvious. 95 Nebraska is the one that I think of. I don't know beyond that who, would have shaken up this list. But.
I don't know, like 97 Florida, I mean, probably would, I don't know. I mean, like, of course, that was a team, a bunch of those guys as freshmen and sophomores had watched 95 Nebraska run through them like tissue paper. And they still did have a loss on the thing, but that team was really good. The Werfel team, they were really, really good.
Nebraska had about 20-something players from that 95 team that made it to the NFL. I'm not sure all of them were highly drafted.
No, but that's why
Miami.
If you wanted to put them up there in the top 5 of this, if you had said that the best team since 1990, they'd be up there for sure.
They would be
top 3.
Here's their argument.
That's what I'm saying is like, where would they be? Because I wonder if 19 LSU's past them, like in most people's minds at this point, because it's fresher and newer and different and all of that. The only other thing that I thought of was that 2020 Alabama team is good. It's just impossible to know how good they were in the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the COVID year, you were great, and that's awesome. And you probably would have been great regardless. But that COVID year was a different year, man. Like, the championship still counts. Like, that's that all counts. But, like, in terms of the greatest of all time, it's just so hard to tell on that season versus everything else being equal, I feel like. So I'm glad that he mentioned them. I just don't know how much of a debate you could have based on the season that they had to play out. And then again, you could say, well, it was more difficult, right?
Yeah.
It was more difficult. So
I might have put them in the top 10, but lower.
Yeah.
Just because of that, because there's no way to know it. But yeah,
they won some big ass games, man. They beat a bunch of really good teams. So I mean, I get it, but yeah, I just think that I don't think there needs to be an asterisk or anything along those lines, but just greatest, I feel like it's harder to determine. But then again, like I said, you could say, well, they had extra difficulty points because it was the pandemic. So depends on how you want to look at it.
Garrett, would you like to know Nebraska's resume in 95, just in case you're curious?
Yeah, give it to me. What you got?
The one thing I mentioned about 01 Miami, which I would not like fight to the death over that team against 95 Nebraska. I wouldn't, because they are just legendary. Nebraska that year beat number 2, 7, 8, and 10.
Okay.
2, 7, 8, and 10. The closest game was 35-21. They beat Washington State early in the year. But, I mean, they pulverized some people, including, of course, destroyed Florida, which was number 2 and very, very good, 62-24. And that Miami had Ken Dorsey. Nebraska had Tommy Frazier. 2 different styles, but 2 of them, both those teams, were just phenomenal. Just absolutely. That's the one argument for 95 Nebraska. I'm biased, but I would not like start a fight over who's better, 95 or 01 Miami.
Which national championship team is missing off of here?
Is there one?
Do you have an obvious one? Because you bring it up.
Over that UCF team. I'm joking.
I'm joking. Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah.
In the chat room, 99 Florida State was loaded. That's the team that beat Virginia Tech. I'd put 95 Nebraska over 01 Miami, to be honest.
Yeah, I think there's those 2 teams. I think when up until 19 LSU and look, you might still be somebody who doesn't have 19 LSU with those 2 teams. I just think those are kind of the gold standards. Those 2 teams, 95 Nebraska up until 01 Miami, and then it was like the big debate about who's the greatest. And I think from an NFL standpoint, Miami clearly the winner there. And you could go with them. I wouldn't have any fault with that. But I think after those two is when it does get interesting. And I just wonder for some people if 95 Nebraska has been hopped over by a 19 LSU because maybe bias or maybe just think that they were better overall.
Nebraska would beat the living shit out of 19 LSU. Their defense was ferocious, and LSU's defense would never stop the option.
Maybe, but y'all couldn't stop the pass either.
Oh, no, yes, they would. They beat the best passing team in college football 62-24. Do you remember how many times Danny Werfel was sacked in that game? I bet he does.
Yeah, he does.
No, I'm 19. 19 LSU was just, golly.
95 Nebraska did beat an SEC team in the national championship game.
I blame 95 Nebraska slightly for FSU. Of course, that was also James Brown and John Makovic beating Nebraska and FSU having to play Florida again in the Sugar Bowl in 97.
No, that would have been 96.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 97 Sugar Bowl. But, 96, right? So, in 96. So, Florida State beat Danny Werfel that year in Tallahassee. Then they had to play them again in the Sugar Bowl because Texas won. But I do think that in that 95 championship game or the national championship game where Werfel got just destroyed, and then same thing happened to him in Tallahassee, that Steve Spurrier spent a month saying, how dare you hit my quarterback every time there was a microphone in his face. And then in the first quarter of that game in the Sugar Bowl, which Florida was going to win anyway, they were going to win it. But they called 3 roughing the passers and got in FSU's head, and then they didn't know what to do after that. Not to mention he put him in the shotgun and just tore him up. But that was partially because he got so Epsom, they ran out of Epsom salt for him after that 95 game, which they got destroyed.
Yeah, but that was it was a blowout, and Florida, I think, in that game scored first in 62-24.
I will tell you, I watched the game with my best friend who's a diehard Gator fan, and I have never to this point in his life seen someone so sad over sports as the moment when Tommy Frazier broke that run. It was okay, well, this is not gonna go your way.
Yeah, it was pretty clear at that point, and that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. I feel like that was the one last kind of gut punch to just further kick them while they were down, just the final blow. And yeah, we were there in person. That was pretty fantastic out in Arizona. But yeah, 95 Nebraska, 19 LSU, 01 Miami. I think those are kind of the standards all time in my head. But that's a fun list to look at.
I bet there's some teams, though, we could go and again, that's why it's a never-ending debate. Some of those USC, Oklahoma teams with Switzer back in the 70s that were so good with the Selman brothers, and there's other teams along the way that also are a part of that conversation. Around the corner, Shane Ryan was at the PGA Championship. Scotty Scheffler won. By the way, updating our draft, the PGA Championship player draft, we did not know that yet when we went off the air Friday. We pretty much had an idea. Nobody was able to win the PGA Championship because everybody had somebody who missed the cut. Everybody did. And some of them in the last few minutes, because that cut line got to, +1 in the end, and it thought we might nudge it above +2, but nobody did. So we'll have him on that. Garrett, a couple of notes on the Big 12 and baseball before we take the break and come back with Shane Ryan. So the Big 12 tournament starts this week. West Virginia is the number 1 seed. KU's right there. But the reason why, the other interesting note that came out today is that starting next year, the Big 12 baseball tournament in 2026 will move to surprise Arizona just on the edge of Phoenix, where there are numerous Major League Baseball spring training facilities. This one here is shared by the Rangers and the Royals. Been to it many times, Paul. We've covered things there many times. Great training camp facility. They're moving it. And the only complaint I saw, why would you leave from an air-conditioned or temperature-controlled building to where it could be 100 degrees?
Well, I saw multiple complaints right away. It was not Utah fans this time complaining about football media days. It was Arizona and I guess Arizona State fans who, based on what I could tell, in one of them, was poor choice as far as traffic goes.
that's
Traffic's
true.
A beast where this stadium is.
Yeah.
And so that's something that they didn't like. And there was something else. I mean, I guess, outdoors. I mean, I'm all for moving stuff around, but I mean, the Rangers ballpark's about as nice as you can possibly get in the entire world right now, as far as baseball playing goes. I mean, it is as up to date and legitimately nice as any stadium I've ever been to. And it's air conditioned, and you don't have a problem, a care in the world. But I know you want to spread the love. So I guess going outside would be another complaint. I do think there are people that were excited that there is going to be something closer to home, but there was a little bit of like, well, why are they doing this? And then I kind of checked out because I was like, well, you try and do something nice, and then immediately you start getting panned for it by everybody who's now complaining about traffic and the heat and everything else. So damned if you do, damned if you don't, I guess. But the Rangers ballpark, Paul, have you still not been there?
Not for a game. No, I've been inside it, but I've never been for a game.
Well, for a game, it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I think I'm fine with this. I know it's going to be hotter in June than it would be, if they had like a preseason, or not a preseason, but like a non-conference, weekend matchup early in the season.
But it's going to be mid-May.
But it's going to be mid-May. It's not going to be June. It's mid-May. It should be, mostly all right there. Also, like, are we playing baseball? Or are we doing ballet?
Yeah. By the way, you know what the temperature is in Surprise right now? It's 92 degrees.
Yeah, look, they're going to have to play in that. Look, it gets that hot at Rosenblatt Stadium, or what? It's not Rosenblatt anymore. But like, you get my point. In Omaha, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, good. Have fun with it. And you have plenty of like, there's facilities all over for teams to practice and warm up and do all those things. I'm all for this. As a matter of fact, if you want to put one down the road in Peoria, put one there. Like,
the thing I said,
put half of it there and put half of it in Surprise and play the championship at the Bob. Don't care.
Peoria is what should be about a 15-minute drive, but traffic-wise, it might take you an hour from where we used to stay, and then we'd get up and drive into Surprise. But it is a gorgeous area. They could probably play a couple of games at one time. Play one in Peoria, play one at the Dodgers have their facility just a little bit south of where Surprise is. But that was the note about the Big 12 tournament that will be moving to Surprise in 2026. So there we are with that. All right, when we come back, Shane Ryan, Scotty Scheffler is now a part of a group that since World War II includes Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, and Scotty Scheffler. We'll have that and more. This is 365 Sports.
Alan Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Alan Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Scotty Scheffler wins his 3rd major. He's halfway through the overall Grand Slam of winning all the 4. It's twice in the Masters and now the PGA Championship. Shane, hey, buddy. Thanks for
how's it going, David?
We're doing well. Craig and Paul, David Smoak, 365 Sports. There was a time yesterday where he was wobbly, front 9. He couldn't hit anything up left. What did he do, and what does it say that it wasn't flawless, and yet he found a way to win?
Yeah, I just think everybody was crowning him the night before, and there was just that nagging part of me that I did think he was going to win, but it's just winning a major is never easy, right? There's very, very few times where we've seen a guy go and win by 10 shots. It does happen, but it seems to happen once every 5 or 6 years. Super rare. So the fact that he struggled doesn't surprise me. This is a huge moment for him, to get that 3rd major and to get a major outside of Augusta. So, yeah, he struggled. Who knows what was going on? His club face may have been a little close at impact, so he was pulling it left. But to your point, what distinguishes Scotty Scheffler, and it's you saw it in microcosm there, you can see it in the big picture everywhere, to be able to adjust like that in that stage with the big pressure, to figure it out and to go have the amazing back 9 he did when, we've all been in sports situations, no matter the sport, where you have a big lead and you start to lose it. The tendency is to panic. That's what I always used to do playing basketball. You go crazy. But to be there where he could have panicked and then to put it all together, it just shows what a great calm demeanor he has and really what a clutch and the perspective he has is just unbelievable.
Why did he not get affected by the driver tests and Rory did?
So, yeah, I think what you're referring to is he did get dinged in the driver and he had to replace it. The idea is why did he go on and play well? Part of it is preparation. I mean, this when he admitted afterward that, they got my driver too, they expected that was coming. Over time, drivers wear down. And so at the Byron Nelson, which he won, he was expecting it to happen. He said this might be the week they do it. And so he had his guys at TaylorMade make him up a new driver. He was prepared for it to happen. It didn't happen there, but they had the driver there this week. So when it did, he was ready to go. The old saying, what is it? Amateurs talk strategy, pros talk logistics. He had the logistics figured out. But Rory got, this week he lost his driver. Last week at the Truist, he had his driver and he was really bad there driving too. So it wasn't the replacement driver that was messing Rory up. Something is just a little off with him right now. And I don't think you can fully blame the new driver.
So John Rahm made a hell of a run.
I've always thought that if a guy hasn't had major experience, the pressure, even if it's somebody who's won one in the past and we know his clutch, they need one to get the feeling back. That's independent from Liv. It could be someone on the PGA Tour who's been injured for a couple of years, whatever. So I will also say, though, that every Sunday in Major Championship, I think we can underrate the role that luck plays. And you just referred to that putt that lipped out. I think it was on 11 when he was on that incredible run. If that putt goes down, you have to ask yourself, man, how would that tournament have been different? Because he would have taken the lead. And, Scheffler, I think Scheffler's composure would have been fine, but it's a little different seeing yourself tied versus seeing yourself, oh my God, I had a 3-shot lead, now I'm 1 behind. Rahm would have had more energy, but I think it does come down to he's just not used to playing in that pressure situation. He's very good at it, and I think, U.S. Open, you got to look out for him, British Open, but I think he needed one time to kind of remember what the feeling is like, because clearly at the end, that surge he had just kind of tapered off. He didn't birdie those 2 easy holes, and then he got to the Green Mile and just got kind of murdered. In Quail Hollow, people have a point when they say it's boring, but along with that boring, it is a true test. It is long. Okay. So this course, you can look at the advanced stats. It's always important to drive the ball well. This course, compared to every other PGA Tour course, it's really important to drive the ball well. If you're accurate and short, that's not good enough here. You need to be long. You need to be accurate. Your long irons have to be good. It really tests your length. So it was always going to be the case. We had that funky leaderboard on Thursday. It was always going to be the case that you were going to have the elite golfers, because it does separate the wheat from the chaff. But to your point, a guy like Rory, you can eat him up. As much success as Rory has had here, it can eat him up. Xander Schauffele, it can eat him up. Even guys who did well for a while. Max Homa looked like he had it again. It can eat him up, which it did on the last day. So, yeah, it is a little bit of a boring course, quite honestly, by major standards, but it also is a hard course. So there's, you can, if you're an optimist, you can kind of find interesting stuff there.
Are you a fan of major championships having drivable par fours?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's great. That the drama on hole 14, even on hole 8, just when guys can do that, it puts such a premium. I mean, look what a big deal it was on Saturday when Scotty drove his shot on 14 to 2 feet and made eagle, right? That was the start of him dominating the Green Mile and making this huge surge, which you could argue, even though he floundered on Sunday, it kind of won him the tournament when he did that. So I think it's fun. The risk reward of it, I'm a big fan of it. I wish everyone would have it. I wish everything would have that and like an 80-yard par 3, a really short, tricky par 3.
But it seemed like every time I looked up, John Rahm was on a par 5, though. It just seemed like that. I kind of got distracted and, oh, my God, he's on another par 5.
I think because he's such a big dude, they just show him on the bigger holes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's right. Well, it is funny. Like when you have 14 and 15 back-to-back, 14 is the short par 4. That's kind of like a par 5 in the sense that
that's true.
So I had the same feeling. 14 and 15, it's like, God, are there only par 5s on this course? There's a lot of birdie holes.
Exactly what I felt.
Okay. Yeah.
Which harder
on the tee boxes.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, no, the U.S. Open, if they could, I think they'd release the gators. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It'd be really funny if they did an Oakmont because there's no alligators there. So if you saw some, you go, I know the USGA is behind this. This is their handiwork for sure. No, it's a good question. Rahm played well. He didn't play poorly. But to your previous point, I expect him to be right in the mix there. Guys who got beat up, Schauffele is somebody who kind of had his surgery at the beginning of the year. It's taken him a while to find his form. We've seen it a little bit here and there. I think with another month, I expect him to be right back up there. And then you never know. There's always guys who find form. I don't want to say Rory because I don't know what's going on with Rory right now. So I don't want to make any predictions. This felt like it should have been, just a victory lap for him. Just he should have been happy and having fun. And instead he looked miserable all week. So who knows there? And then, who knows? A guy like Wyndham Clark could find his form again. There's a number of guys. Max Homa is starting to play well again. Guys who kind of floundered on Sunday, you might see them in the mix at Oakmont.
Did DeChambeau, was it Saturday when he hit the ball in the water on 17? When he just it doubles, bogeyed and then doubled. Yep. Did that end it for him?
It did. And that's the one thing about Quail is for all the criticism, that Green Mile, the 16, 17, 18 at the end, unbelievably hard. I mean, I think the previous record was Quail Hollow in 2017 of the hardest 3-hole stretch. This obliterated even that year. I mean, the field was plus 500 and then some on it for the weekend. And you saw, Bryson was right there on Saturday. It destroyed him, right? He fought back. He did well on Sunday. He got second place. Rahm, it destroyed him on Sunday. It happened over and over. And it's what distinguished Scheffler. He was great on it. Beyond great on it Saturday, really superb. And then he kind of, maybe by Sunday he had it wrapped up, but he played it smartly. He played it well. So it's a real separator of the wheat from the chaff.
Your story,
the moments on Sunday where you have a guy sitting on a lead and, those hours, you don't tee off until 3:00. Those hours must go so slow. And yeah, I think Scheffler has a very good poker face. But the story I love from him, the first major he won in 2022 at Augusta, he admitted afterward, he was up with his wife in the morning crying, going, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I'm the man for the job. I don't think I have it in me, which I just thought was so cool that it happened and cool for him to admit it too. And so, yeah, I was kind of watching, it's a different situation now. He does have 2 majors, but what I noticed is that, the emotion is there, but he keeps everything very regimented because I think that's the best way to handle the chaos of what your brain must be saying to you. Just going, okay, at 50 minutes to go, we start hitting irons. At 30 minutes to go, we hit the driver. Then we go to the wedges. At 10 minutes to go, we go to the putting green. So, you had that. But what you mentioned was my second favorite part, which was when he threw the hat down on the green on 18. That to me is like, yeah, he's happy he won. But I think there's relief and almost like defiance mixed in there because golf is unbelievable when you're by yourself and have to do it on this kind of stage. And then, of course, the front 9, he's awful, right? So all of that stuff, all the nerves, all the anxiety, the sense that you stood up to it. It must be like being at the end of a battle when your life was on line and you survived, you know? I mean, I'm not saying it's that serious, but it must feel something like that. And so when he threw that hat down, I thought it was cool. I think there was just a lot of emotion in that. I think winning Pinehurst last year was a good thing. I mean, that kind of, I know he won the COVID US Open too, and that's not to poo-poo that at all, but winning Pinehurst was proof of concept, and it was the one he won with Liv, so that was big for him. And yeah, he's always in the mix. I think this one, if I were him, I wouldn't regret as much because I thought Scotty, despite his poor play in the beginning, really went out and earned it. I think he's got to, Bryson, I think the Masters is the one that got away because Rory, let's be honest, Rory tried to give that one away a million times and just nobody else stepped up. I think if that Masters had happened a month later, Scheffler, he was recovering from injury, all that. I think Scheffler would have beat him that day, but Scheffler just wasn't quite there. But Bryson was so good through that tournament, and just on Sunday, he just couldn't find it, whether it was nerves or whatever it was. So I think the big thing, though, he's always in the mix, just like you said. He is always in the mix. He won Pinehurst. He's been top 2 or 3 in these first 2 majors this year. Oakmont sets up really well for him. I think he's just got to keep putting himself in the position, and one day, the day is going to come where he handles the nerves well, or he gets a few breaks or whatever. He's one of the best players in the world right now, and really one of the few guys who went to Live, and it seemed to be really good for them.
Roy won.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. He didn't seem like he was having fun. We kind of expected the Zen Rory, right? We got the career Grand Slam. Why aren't you happy? I keep coming up with sayings, but the one saying was like, if you want to curse somebody, give them exactly what they want, right? So the driver thing may have been the reason that he didn't speak. If that's the case, though, I think what a silly decision, because here you have a situation where he gets dinged for a driver that completely normal situation. It happens all the time. It happened to Scheffler. It happens to a bunch of people. All you have to do, but the problem is they have a confidentiality policy, right? The USGA, the PGA of America, we don't tell about these tests. Well, when it leaks, that's a problem, right? When it leaks, when it's the big names, which it seems to do a lot, then they still remain quiet, and it leaves the rest of us or people who know even less than us to speculate, oh, was he cheating? Did it, if he hadn't had his driver at the Masters, does it taint the Masters victory? All that stuff. So him not talking compounds that. Yes, the governing body should have come out and said, listen, this is ordinary business. It doesn't do anything to his Masters win. He needed to come out. If they were going to do it, he needed to get ahead of that narrative. By not talking, it just kind of raises questions. And then you look on social media, people are saying, oh, he's a cheater, this and that, which is not true. But I mean, talk, right? Like, go say so. Even if it's for 30 seconds, go, let me explain the driver situation to you. Get out ahead of it and be done with it. But so I don't know why. Maybe there's other stuff going on. I have no idea, but I think it was a bad decision.
Well,
one that surprised me, I didn't know it had gotten to this point. He is now 3rd all time in weeks at number 1. So only ahead of him is Greg Norman, and then 8 miles ahead of him is Tiger. But he's right there at number 3. He passed everybody. He passed Faldo, Rory, all these guys. So we're witnessing a level of excellence that we haven't seen since Tiger. It's very, very easy to say that now. He is in that group with Tiger. Well, you have to remember, if you were looking at parallel arcs with him and Tiger, this is the point in Tiger's career where he just turned it on and won, 6 out of 7 majors, or whatever, 5 out of 7, whatever it was. So that's going to be a hard pace to keep up with. However, just, when he's on his game, I mean, the way he played at the Byron Nelson, you said coming to the PGA, I don't care how well Rory's done at this course. Scheffler is better than him, I think. And this is his tournament to lose. And that's exactly how it played out. So you're getting that Tiger feeling of, he's not going to win every major. This is golf. It's not tennis where the best players always win, but he's so fearsome. He's so intimidating. And you look at him and go, who's going to beat this guy when he's on his game? Who's going to beat him? So it's really super impressive.
He hits some of the players coming back or a merger.
Yeah, well, Eamon Lynch in the last week leading up to the PGA wrote that Trump was doing a Middle Eastern swing, and he was going to at some point talk to Yasser from the PIF and bring the PGA's terms, the PGA Tour's terms. Who knows? We haven't heard anything, right? So obviously, I think you've got maybe a little bit of stubbornness on the live side. They don't want to just put their money into the tour, which is what the tour wants at this point. Just give us your money. We'll let you be investors, which they wouldn't let at first, but now they're willing to do it. But at this point, that's going to feel like a defeat to live to the PIF. So they're kind of holding out. But the PGA Tour, I think rightly so, feels like they're winning this battle. Their ratings are back up. Their stars are great. Nobody's watching live, and nobody has since the beginning. And look, maybe if like you have a couple live major champions, maybe that changes, or maybe the balance changes. But I think, Jay Monahan and the tour, I think they're in the driver's seat right now. So they're not going to give in. Right. And so remember the deal they made 2 years ago? Like, it's just funny. You can call something a deal now when you seem to have no intention of actually following through on it. And I don't think it's any closer. As far as I know, you can always be surprised. And I think the SGS private equity or SSG rather, that invested in the tour, they probably want Saudi money because they want to make money too. So there are still factors that push you toward a deal, but it just seems like it's at such an impasse right now.
Smoak and I were talking about this the other day, and I said, the thing that would jump out to me, like if I'm a live player and I'm struggling on these majors or all that, I think about Brooks Koepka. I just wonder how playing 54 holes in a different style makes you a better 72-hole tournament player. I don't nobody, like when you're playing another sport, like in baseball, it's all the ninth inning. In basketball, it's fourth quarter, second half. Football is fourth quarter. Golf's no different. Like if you're not going to play the other 18 holes, then I'm wondering if that just hurts you overall.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, McGinley, I don't know if you watched live from the Golf Channel afterward, but McGinley was kind of hammering that point of this is, we know Rahm's a clutch player. We know he can win majors, but he doesn't look like a guy who was up for it by the end of Sunday. He looked, phenomenal in the beginning, but it's tough because for every argument you can make like that, and I think there is some truth to that. Then you can go, well, Brooks won, Bryson won while playing for Live, right? They have had major champions, and they do have guys at the top of the leaderboard all the time. So I'm hesitant to go full in on that, just because I think it's such an individual thing in a lot of cases. Now, if you want to look big picture, there are guys who look at Cam Smith, like he went to Live and kind of disappeared. And there are a few guys like that. Dustin Johnson's another one where it's like, wow, did they just give up? Do they just not want to play anymore? I don't know. But the guys who are taking it seriously, they're still in the mix. When you see them falter on Sunday, I understand the temptation to say that. And I sometimes think it too. I know the part that holds me back is they have had winners, and they may again at Oakmont. And so I don't want to go fully kind of into that.
All right, last thing. You wrote the story. We've asked you about everything from the tournament. Was there anything else in particular that stood out that we have not brought up about the weekend at Quail Hollow?
Well, we've covered a lot. I think I was impressed with Max Homa. He's a guy I like to watch, and his press conferences are always fascinating. He's really, really struggled. I think he missed 5 cuts in a row. He kind of took charge of his coaching a little bit. I think it's the same coach, but he kind of abandoned the old approach, whatever approach he was trying. He's back to his old swing. He's playing really well. And Homa's the kind of guy where you're like, did he just have a year or two where he was super hot and that was the ceiling for him, and now he's going to kind of go off into oblivion or whatever? I think if he can get back to the top, he was a top 5 player. If he can get back there, it really proves something about his quality. So, and also he's a great team match play player. So it'd be cool if somehow he made a run and could be on the Ryder Cup at Bethpage. Other than that, no, I can't really think of anything. It was a weird week in a lot of ways, highlighted by the Rory stuff. It was a good ending, and Scotty Scheffler took a huge leap for his legacy, and on to Oakmont. I think Oakmont will be a little bit more exciting. We got a cooler course and a historic course, and it's going to be some tough golf with hopefully some alligators in the mix there.
Shane, thank you, man. Good stuff. Appreciate it. A Golf Digest, a story about Scheffler, his third major, 2 Masters, 22 and 24, and then now with the PGA Championship, which is the one that Arnold Palmer never won. It's better now that it's been in a long, long time because of the way the field is set up, and they moved it from August into the month of mid-May. All right, when we come back, the 5 o'clock hour, this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, introducing the all-new 2025 Dodge Durango GT. Bold design meets serious capability. Sleek styling, room for the entire crew, advanced navigation to keep you on track. SUV built for whatever life takes or wherever you want to drive. Alan Samuels right now in Waco, CEO and General Manager Ted Teague. Drive it home for $37,446. That's a top tier tech, power, and style for $37,446. That's the 2025 Dodge Durango GT. Looking for real power, the 2025 Ram 2500 Tradesman. That's a dude now, built to haul, tow, and take on whatever you want, including the mighty 6.4-liter gas engine. And right now, $5,384 off MSRP. And first responders and military get an additional $500 off that particular price. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
By the way, as soon as I finish writing and putting up what I did about Alan Samuels, a little note from Ted Teague. Exclusive Stage 1 performance tuning, aggressive styling, unmistakable. Dodge Growl, the 2025 Charger RT is available right now. $10,000 off MSRP or 1.9% for 72 months. Ted, thank you very much for that information. Now, before we get to the next segment, which is about non-conference games coming up in college football, Pair of Thieves, one of the sponsors of our show, 365 Sports. I got some socks, workout socks. They're just nice socks, low cut. Here's a T-shirt. Here's a pair of shorts. Here's a couple of more T-shirts. Paul Catalina.
Yeah, no, Pair of Thieves. You can go to our website, 365sportsdeals.com. We're adding new stuff to it every day. But they're on it. You can use our promo code 365sports, 15% off your order. Pair of Thieves is great. I'm wearing an undershirt from them today, socks. And Garrett told me I could not do the show in the underwear, which I am still protesting.
No, you're not. I'm the judge and jury on that.
I mean, like, here's the deal. I'm still protesting it. I can file the protest forever, but
it's like a house.
No, that's for members only. That's when we do the secret YouTube where you got to pay us money to watch.
That's a good idea. Although I did bring that up to Pair of Thieves, and I said never say never, because he was like, well, I said, sometimes with apparel companies, we wear them on the air, and then people go, oh, that's a cool shirt, and they buy. But with this one, he's like, I don't know if you want to do that. And I said, never say never. He goes, no, I'm saying never.
Yeah.
But no, they're great.
These T-shirts are really
really soft.
Like
this is the best undershirt I've honestly ever had. The socks are great. So
okay, wait a minute. Garrett, Craig, Emery, when was the last time you wore an undershirt?
Oh, God.
I wear one every day,
remember.
basically.
Yeah, I wear one every day.
I don't remember the
I
last
wear one
time
every
I wore
day,
one.
basically.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I thought I don't think I've ever worn an undershirt.
It's not like a bra or anything. It's just a.
I'm just saying. There's a lot of people that absolutely do. A lot of it may depend on the profession or what they do for a living. But I've never been comfortable when I tried it. Maybe when I was younger. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a younger thing, and like stylistically, I probably shouldn't be wearing one. But if you hadn't surmised already, I don't give about what most people think. So, and not in a disrespectful way. I'm not going to be like swayed by that. So yeah, it's as much a habit for me as anything. It's just how it feels the most comfortable. And I get chilly very easily. So even though it's not like a sweater, it's still like an extra layer that keeps me a little bit warmer in a way,
Well, for God's sakes, in this studio, the way Garrett has it.
Why do you think
I need a
why do I
parka.
wear long sleeves every day?
Oh,
it's because of how the studio is. That's why I also know.
Hey,
what is it now? What is the temperature right now?
It's 72.
It should be. Okay,
we got
that's
the equipment. I got to keep the equipment cool.
Yeah, we can't we got to keep the equipment cool.
You could hang meat.
Oh, listen. Do you remember how cold the old equipment room was in the studio above the Wingstop? That was my office.
Oh, yeah.
It was 64 degrees in there every single day.
I couldn't do that.
Because that's what the engineer told us to do. The only reason I had to shut the door to do work was because we had a salesman who was annoying there. And if the door was shut, my rule was don't talk to me. So I would have to sit in there. And even me, that's built like not even him, was.
He knew who I was talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like a walrus. But even still, I'm just in there dying. And they had this big gigantic. And you know what they did? They left the unit there. When they moved out,
the air conditioning
unit, and the people who moved in was like a friend of mine in their office, and they didn't know what to do with it. And I kept thinking, like, that's like a $7,000 air conditioner. We should just take it, but I didn't have anywhere to put it. Even my dad was doing like, I could put that in my. I was like, Dad, it would freeze.
You have a shed or something,
or
like a shop.
Yeah, it was. But we need
Garrett,
to keep it cold.
Garrett's not wearing long, but you normally wear you got just a regular T-shirt on.
Yeah, I mean, I typically I either have a hoodie or a jacket.
Yeah, like Craig always wears like a jacket or a hoodie. Yeah.
I'm the opposite of Craig. I get hot real easy. So like that's why I don't do undershirts, or you'll see me like in shorts year round. So that's kind of how I roll.
Let me also tell you about the undershirt. It is what I call common human decency for a person whose body is corpulent like mine, so that when I raise my arms, you don't see my belly. It's just respect to my fellow human beings.
Corpulent.
Yes.
Well, Pair of Thieves.
Pair of Thieves, but no. Pair of Thieves is fantastic. Go to 365sportsdeals.com. We're adding stuff all the time. So it's there.
First time I've heard that word before, but I thought it was something different. No, you're funny as hell, man. But thank you again, Pair of Thieves. Thieves. I'm telling you, I'm wearing the shorts tomorrow in the morning. I might even. These T-shirts are gorgeous. All right, now top 10 upcoming. Now there's a game in here that's probably missing or two. Top 10 upcoming college football non-conference series. There's a Dodge Charger that went right by us just now. Here is
Georgia's junior wide receiver. No, I'm just kidding.
They haven't caught him yet. They haven't caught him. He's really far. Yeah.
My God, it is funny as hell. All right. Ohio State, Alabama. These are after 2025. Ohio State, Alabama, you could put pretty much any year. That's the one at the top. Michigan, Notre Dame, I thought that for the longest time was just an annual rivalry and it's on and off. That's always been historically for me a game that we'd see in September.
I think they played it like 10 years in a row in like the 90s, and then they stopped and everybody was like, hey, but when they're
but look when that doesn't start till 33 and 34.
Yeah. So when I hear about this, like a game that's scheduled in 2033, like I know these are the ones that are going to make it in 2033. yeah. Like these will make it. They'll keep these.
These guys are all safe for
these
any
guys
kind of
are all
expansion.
safe, but the other ones are, who knows by 2033. So
look how many times you see the Notre Dame logo.
Well,
because they don't have a conference.
Yeah, it's easier for them to do it. And not only is it easier, they have to justify their
existence,
standing.
And they have to for them to overcome not being a part of a conference. Mm-hmm. Ohio State, another one. Georgia, that game is down the road. Oklahoma, you'll always see them involved. OU's on there twice against Clemson, but not for another 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the soonest that these start is that Bama Ohio State, which that's about as blue as you can get in terms of blue blood. So that's right up there. I think all of these, with the exception of Florida, Clemson, Auburn, Miami's pushing it. I feel like compared to Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, like those. I do think that one's kind of pushing it, but I mean, yeah, these are 10 super sexy games on paper that I look forward to. But yeah, the soonest one will be that Alabama, Ohio State here in a couple years. And I mean, that just looks cool paired together. I mean, obviously we've seen that in the playoffs and whatnot. Michigan, Notre Dame, I didn't realize, I guess just not super in tune with how often that series is played and the kind of the specific details of it, but that does feel like one that every year it should be on the schedule. I mean, I don't think anybody would complain too much about that. But yeah, a lot of Ohio State and the SEC on here. I'm glad to see Nebraska and Oklahoma resuming things. Once again, they've had this off-on thing when it's fit the schedule to be able to get back together. I don't think it's ever led to what a lot of people hoped it would lead to, and kind of the rekindling of the greatest rivalry in college football. I think it's a lot of older people who remember it for what it was, or younger people who have old souls who remember it fondly. But this has popped up now 2 or 3 times, I feel like, in the last 20 years. Like, it's Nebraska and Oklahoma getting back together. And I think there's a little bit of sizzle, and there's very immediately pretty much a fizzle. And I think a lot of that's had to do with Nebraska's just not Nebraska.
No, they're not.
But that's not the only reason why. I think that is some of it, though, over time. And yeah, that just doesn't speak to me the way it spoke to you and to people of your era.
I had some of the most exhilarating moments and some of the most gut-wrenching, like wide right type of moments with Nebraska OU over the years.
It speaks to me because I loved the rivalry.
I'm glad they're playing.
I'm glad they're playing. The thing about it is Dan Beebe killed it, when he let Texas tell them how to do the schedule, and they're like, well, we got to make it even, and then
let's get some background. And Texas takes a lot of blame for a lot of things, and but Texas had their 2 most common and tradition-rich rivalries because they were in the same division.
Yeah,
but when they split the divisions north and south, how they can't keep that game going blows my mind. And I blame Texas, but they did not come up with a scheduling thing. They're like, well, I mean, 2 years on and 2 years off, and you're like, no. All right, here's the deal. So when they joined the SEC, they got. When I'm talking again, Texas gets blamed for a lot of things, and probably some of it is true. But I guarantee you that when they joined the SEC, it was a guarantee that every year they would play A&M and Oklahoma.
You know what the difference is? The SEC's not freaking stupid.
There you go.
They saw the money. They're like, why would we not play that game every year? That would be the dumbest thing to do. Would be to not play this game
Nebraska
every year.
Play.
And look, the SEC was doing this at the same time that the Big 12 was, because they had expanded.
Yes.
And they knew that, hey, all right, well, all of a sudden we've moved Tennessee and Alabama into different divisions, but that's a huge rivalry. We're not going to stop playing that. Mm-hmm. We're not going to stop playing, Florida and LSU. We're not going to do that. We're going to play that one every year because
it's not that hard to do.
Yeah, but no offense, we'd rather see Tennessee play Florida than we would see them play
Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Vanderbilt.
Well, no, they play Vanderbilt.
Or Arkansas.
But here's the thing. It's like Craig said. Why would you take away a game that's going to bring in? It's popular. It's going to have a full stadium, no matter what, which they would do. And by the way, it's
television.
Good. Yes,
of course, they weren't thinking about that.
The divisions. That's why that was the reason given, was the divisions, and you had to play the teams in your division, so they were in separate divisions, so they didn't play. But yeah, you would think that there would have been some people who would have been smart enough to realize, well, we'll make an exception and we'll have a crossover division game that's standard every year or something along those lines. Would have been the smarter move rather than just not having it really be a part of the picture whatsoever and just hope they'll play each other in the championship game, which never happened, did it? They didn't ever play in the championship game. Nebraska played Texas. Texas played Colorado. Oklahoma played. I mean, yeah. So that's one of those. I mean, there's many, and I don't think even if they would have done things perfectly, the Big 12 would have lasted the way that it was. But that was just one of those initial choices. You're just like, y'all are doomed to fail. Deciding to not have Oklahoma and Nebraska every year.
Some of the most famous games in Big 12 history, and there's a chunk of them, was the Oklahoma 2000 game, but the 01 game with Crouch and the throwback. Not to mention maybe one of the greatest games in college football history back in 1971. And I know, get off my lawn, you don't ruin any kind of rivalries at that level just because. You don't do it. It's stupid. By the way, one note on Notre Dame and Florida. I just was curious. They've played one time in their entire existence. That's kind of a unique game. They played back in 92 in I believe it was a Sugar Bowl, and Notre Dame won that game 39-28.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of forced into a situation to have those big games because they don't have a conference. But, I mean, to have Michigan, Texas, Alabama, and Florida, that's pretty cool. Florida does stick out more like a sore thumb because it doesn't feel like I've seen those two logos matched up next to each other very often at all. So you just explained that away. But, yeah, that's some good eating if you're a Notre Dame fan, but you're kind of already, used to playing that level of brands. So that'll be fun. Notre Dame and Florida, very unique matchups. Kind of like some of those for as much complaining, and rightfully so in some cases, as realignment, as much of it's created some things that people don't necessarily like. There are some unique matchups that we haven't seen nearly as much as we thought, if at all, that we get, like Texas, Florida. You'd have thought they'd have played maybe 20 times or something, bowl games, whatnot. Like there's like basically no history there. And there's other examples of that, but that's some cool games. Colorado, I guess the lone Big 12 school on there. Playing the Gators. That ought to be fun. When is that? 28-29? Is that what that says?
Yeah.
So that's a bit down the line, but actually not too far. It's 3 years away. Shoot.
Yeah.
Will Dion be there?
No.
Will either of the head coaches who are there
Great
now
question.
be there?
I say no.
Yeah.
And I don't think Dion's getting like an NFL job next year either. I don't know. That's a long time for me to think that he's still going to be around at that point. I mean, that means you're at Colorado for like 5-6 years. And I don't know that was ever meant to be the case, unless things are just rolling and they are Big 12 champs or have been in the past couple of years, and it's just become clear that that's like his destination job or something. Then sure, but another 3 years in Boulder, I don't know. I don't think I could bet on that right now.
By the way, speaking of that game, how many times have they played Colorado and Florida?
Never.
So there's the Florida Notre Dame game. And Florida, Colorado.
Okay,
so they've added a couple of teams they've played a total of once.
Not to knock Colorado. I'm not trying to do this, but if Deion Sanders wasn't the head coach, that game would not be on this list.
It wouldn't be on the list. No.
It wouldn't be on this list. And he might not be, so it might wind up not on the list after this. So
there was a game or two
fair.
recently in the last week that was announced, and I can't think of which game it was. Because this is something that, Gary, we've had for about a week, right? It's kind of a talking point. And there was a game on this list that I thought, man, that should be included. I don't know which one it is. Alabama, and any of those teams, all of them. But that Florida-Colorado game kind of weird. And I'm glad that they're playing this Auburn and Miami, too. I'm not sure how many times they've played over the years. So there we are, top 10. And I love that Texas is opening up against Ohio State, Michigan last year, Oklahoma, all these teams, they will play people. Now, they'll have Stanford or Texas State or whatever too, but they are going to – the fans and the alums and everybody demands those schools play an alpha, a banger each non-conference schedule.
I think we'll see more and more of these among the Autonomy 4 conferences in the coming 5 years.
I think and then most of the conversation going the other direction.
Well, in Nebraska, Tennessee, somebody brought that up. It pisses me off that they canceled those games.
Look,
Nebraska
maybe you're right, Craig. I think they should, because how do you get more TV money as you play these things?
The new games will be SEC Big Ten crossover matchup, and we'll get Alabama, Ohio State as a part of like some scheduling agreement, and then that will leave Alabama. They still have 3, right? Unless they go to the 9 conference games, and then they'd have only 2 spots left. But they do have the wiggle room by not playing that extra conference game, unlike the Big Ten. But if you add in a scheduling agreement, then there's some matchups that you would get: Alabama, Ohio State. Who else would maybe be on there? Georgia, Ohio State.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about predictions for realignment. So for Notre Dame will be in the Big Ten. I'm not doing that. Yeah. Or Miami's going to be somewhere, whatever. I think that's it, isn't it?
Oklahoma, Nebraska.
Yeah, Oklahoma. Yep, yeah. Oklahoma, Nebraska will be SEC Big Ten. So that might be baked in at that point. And then, you're going to have your one gimme. You got to have at least one gimme. And then you could have, in some cases, your rivalry game. So, Clemson, South Carolina style type of thing. So I don't know how much room there will be if you add scheduling agreements now and you take that away. If you up, like the SEC in particular, if you go to another conference game and you have a Big Ten scheduling agreement, you're going to play at least one team you need to beat 60-0. So where is the room to go play?
Good point.
Yeah,
Southern Cal and a
non-Cal. Then what I would tell the Big 12 and ACC is stop fighting, make your own scheduling agreement right now.
Yeah.
And part of the thing that you kind of have to do. I hear this in sports all the time. We had our doubters. Nobody believed we could do it. Yeah. All those things.
Kirby Smart feels like that.
Yeah, exactly. All that stuff. Okay,
we were the underdogs to TCU.
Literally, you've got a whole people. You can point to. A lot of times when they say that you can't, if you just said, Kirby, specifically, who said that about you? And he would be they. Who are they? The people out there.
The haters.
My mother used to always say around us, you go, well, they say, and my brother Robert got to the point where he started to annoy her when he would say, who is they?
I would like a direct
People magazine.
I would like a direct quote, annotated in AP style from you. But the Big 12 and ACC have plenty of people who think that they're garbage. So why don't you play each other, win some stuff, have some good games, and prove that you're not?
How about Florida State against Tech or something like that?
Yeah, do it.
Hey, by the way, one thing missing, and this might have been when I brought up there were non-conference games not on this list. It doesn't include 25. Florida State has dropped enough to where their games against Alabama next year.
And Georgia.
Alabama in 26, Notre Dame in 26, Georgia in 20.
They play Notre Dame all the time, though. They really do. They play them all.
Well, and that's not about to be a part of a scheduling
Florida State,
agreement.
Georgia?
No, Florida State and Notre Dame.
I'm not talking about Notre Dame. I'm talking about, I mentioned them too.
Notre Dame, yeah.
Yeah, but that was Alabama.
FSU, Notre Dame, and the ACC is going to be kind of baked in now, too. With like Clemson and Notre Dame and Florida State and Notre Dame.
It's littered in throughout. But playing against Alabama, playing against Georgia, a couple of years in a row, not listed among, and that would top.
Well,
I would think about half of those games.
I'd take that over Colorado, Florida, and I would take FSU, Georgia, FSU, Bama. I'd have above Colorado, Florida, or in place of, and I'd have that over Auburn, Miami as well.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know about the other ones, but I'd definitely replace those two games with one of those FSU games. And I know it's like tongue in cheek, but yeah, I mean, they had a bad year last year. They had a somehow way better year, but a worse ending 2 years ago because of how all that played out. But it's still FSU. I know we all joke and online, everything is funny, but it's still Florida State. And them Alabama, that's a huge game.
Carissa also said, hey, they brought back A&M in Texas, the rivalry. Why can't they bring back Michigan, Notre Dame? Well, A&M Texas was forced back because they're in the same conference. Is one reason.
Yeah, I think that's availability probably as much as anything, and just take a little break and then get back together and keep it fresh, I guess, maybe is part of the reason. There's probably something more scientific, but yeah, I think you also want to play other teams and you kind of give yourself a little bit of keeping it fresh that way. But that's a hell of a game. I mean, that's two big blue brands right there at number 2 for sure.
All right, so there we are with that. I just love I can't wait for the first big bangers in college football. I look forward to K-State, Iowa State, the Farmageddon in Dublin, all that. But I look for those early year, and you can lose those games now, where it used to come back to haunt you a little bit that you may not get in if you lost a game in September. Georgia lost to perhaps Ohio State. That doesn't end your chance anymore.
Yeah, I never was. I mean, I liked the every Saturday matters. I still feel that way. I don't think games don't mean anything. I just think that it might take a couple more Saturdays than just the one to knock you out of contention. And there are some downsides to that, but I don't like the idea. I mean, it was fun, but it also just sucked if your team lost a game or two early, and then you're like, so the whole season's a wash, basically. And that wasn't fun, was it? Like, so I know we remember it fondly, but I don't know. I like the idea that, especially with rosters being so fluid now, that you don't have 4 years together to build this brotherhood and this team the way that it would be. And either way, if you did or you didn't, because it's so fluid, I just think it makes it better that the best team at the end of the year is the best team. It's not like what you did in week NFL. 2. So you might be the best team at the end of the year, but hey, you lost to so-and-so, and I know there weren't a lot of one-loss teams. We just talked about an undefeated Auburn not even having a chance. In the playoff, they get to play. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. I'm still for more opportunity. I think it can get out of control, and maybe we're hitting that point, but I thought 4 felt like half a meal. 4 felt like they gave you like half the or gave you the appetizer when you wanted a full meal deal, but you only got the appetizer. You're like, I want more of this. And now we might be getting like 3 desserts, and that might not be good either. But I think there is a good middle ground, and I do like it better than my team's 2-2. Their season is wrecked unless they win out.
Absolutely.
Whereas now it's like, well, you could still technically just don't lose again, and you could, that kind of thing.
No, you have a chance, and it's not like the NFL, because the NFL is about compiling all the wins. You could be 10-7 and still have a chance. Adam Scheffler reporting that Shedeur Sanders, 4 years, $4.6 million contract.
Yeah, that's about standard.
Pay cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen,
it is.
His watch budget's going to have to drop.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get an Apple Watch there, brother. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't know, man. That's the going rate for where he was drafted. So I do think that's probably a pay cut, but I'm glad that we're all beyond the Shedeur drama of draft week now, and everybody's kind of moved on from that. And now it's up to that young man to prove everybody right or wrong one way or the other. And he's going to have to do so in a very crowded quarterback room, but it's definitely for college football fans, an interesting quarterback room. That's for damn sure. Having him and, Dylan Gabriel alone just off this year's draft duking it out. So yeah, good for him to get that done, even though that's all kind of part of the process. But what's next is what's going to be most important. It's like, how the hell does he play at this next level? Yeah. And is he going to be shoving it in people's faces, or is he going to continue to get his fair share of flack as he did during draft week?
Yeah, I brought some of that on himself.
Oh yeah,
no doubt. And usually was humbled because of it, right? He pointed at his watch.
I think that's the question. Was he? Yeah, I don't know that he was. No, I think we'll see.
Hey, he said a lot of things after they beat Nebraska to death 2 years ago, or whatever, 2023, and then they pummeled his ass. Did he learn from that? I don't know. I'm not really sure. By the way, Garrett, did LSU hold on to the number 1 ranking D1 baseball top 25?
Yes, they did.
All right. Good.
Then they're number 3 in the SEC tournament seedings.
See, that's still how good that conference. That's how good that conference is, because they're that good. They're ranked number 1 in the country, and yet they're number 3 in their conference tournament. All right, we will come back. We come back with the Minnesota Big Ten football schedule. We go through the Big Ten. It's Minnesota, the Golden Gophers, and Paul wanted this guy to coach at Baylor. No. Row your boat. That's next. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace off I-35, where you can get the evidence your doctor and you need, because there's a pain that is really like shutting you down. It just could be that you slipped and tore an ACL. It could be because you have back issues, and I've had them. Maybe there's something going on in your shoulder. I've had that too, a muscle spasm that seemed like would never end. But eventually got information from being inside the state-of-the-art imaging machine at Ideal MRI, and it was $497 or less every single time. Ideal MRI can find out if it's a muscle, a ligament, what is torn or shredded, or maybe it's fine. And that means your doctor can find something else to think about of trying to alleviate the pain. Ideal MRI with Dr. Rob Maxey and his great partners and staff inside the Central Texas marketplace. south part of Waco off I-35.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube.
During the spring, early spring, all the way into now and over the next month or so, there are the 4 autonomy conferences. The Autonomy 4 conferences. We started looking at schedules, not so much predictions, but kind of looking at them with constant roster shuffle and also movement. We've done the Big 12, we've done the ACC, and now we're in the middle of the Big 10, Craig Smoak, Minnesota.
Yeah, talking Golden Gophers as we just roll along here, and this is just something different to shake it up and talk about just some teams that we might not otherwise talk very much about, and to kind of give them their own little segment, just sort of riffing on who they play this year and maybe a little bit about the team itself. But this isn't some scientific breakdown or big prediction thing. It's just let's talk about Minnesota for 15 minutes. So here we are, and PJ Fleck. Man, he's been at Minnesota for a long time now. He's nearing a decade at Minnesota, which is kind of crazy to think about, but it was just feels like yesterday. He was that guy at Western Michigan that was kind of young and rebellious and rubbed some people the wrong way, still does. But yeah, now here he is, and he is heading into season 9 as head coach of the Golden Gophers. They've won 4 straight bowl games. They went 8-5 a year ago, which was a 2-game improvement on their 6-7 in 2023. So 8-5 in a very crowded Big Ten is where we last saw the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and a program that it definitely gets lost in the shuffle. But like I said, that's what the segment like this is for. So their season did end in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. And PJ Fleck not having to take the tub of mayonnaise. So who was the real winner in the Duke's Mayo Bowl if you didn't have to take the tub of mayonnaise? It's because the winner takes the tub of mayonnaise, right?
Yeah.
So, or no, they did win. So he did have to take it. Sorry, I was thinking I was under the
right
impression
over
that they
his
lost.
bald head, just slithered right off his bald head.
PJ Fleck did have to take the tub of mayonnaise. My apologies there. I was looking at the red line a couple rows above that. So they ended on a 24-10 win over Virginia Tech. PJ Fleck got the mayonnaise, and that's where we last saw them. So in terms of what's in store for this year for Minnesota, they get started on a Thursday. So some of the schools that we talk about, they have no Thursday games, no Friday games. Some teams have both. In the case of Minnesota, they have all Saturdays with the exception of this very first game out of the gates, and that is at home on August the 28th against the Buffalo Bulls. So that is how things kickstart for the Golden Gophers. Then the following week, have a couple extra days to prepare since you played on a Thursday to open things up. And you get Northwestern State coming up from Louisiana to take you on at Huntington Bank Stadium. So first two games at home, two games that you basically are paying to win and expect to win. And then you get into week 3, Saturday, September the 13th, your first road trip in a little Big Ten versus ACC action as you close out this portion of the schedule, this first 3 weeks with the Cal Golden Bears out in Berkeley on September the 13th. And then the following week, you have your first of 2 open weeks. So actually a pretty clean schedule here for Minnesota where they play their non-con, they take a break, and then they get into conference play. There's none of this like, here's a rando-ass non-con game in week 12 or random conference game in week 1 like Iowa State and Kansas State. No, pretty clean and simple, and one of the simpler schedules I've seen, I feel like, throughout this entire process. So, yeah, there's their first 3. Buffalo, Northwestern State, both those at home, and then they go to Cal before taking a little bit of a break before Big Ten play.
I read something about Cal today, and that they like Justin Wilcox, really good coach, but they've had so much roster flux, it's going to be tough. This is a really good shot for them to be 3-0 rolling out of the gate here, and obviously no worse than 2-1.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely should be the expectation, 3-0. Although we'll see when they head off to Berkeley if that gets a little bit squirrely. Then they return after the first bye week, and they get Rutgers to open up Big Ten play. That will also be in Minneapolis. So 3 of their first 4 games at home. And then it is a big road trip to Columbus for a meeting with the Ohio State Buckeyes on Saturday, October 4th. Go back home for 2 consecutive games as they will host Purdue on October the 11th, which will be their homecoming game, and then Nebraska on October the 18th. Don't get a break. There is a fat middle section here of the schedule. They continue on October the 25th. They go to Kinnick Stadium there in Iowa City for a meeting with Kirk Ferentz and the Hawkeyes. And then Saturday, November 1st, back at home to take on Michigan State. So in this middle section, it's 6 games. So they have a 3-6-3 schedule here. And so, yeah, big meaty part in the middle of all Big Ten action. Rutgers, Purdue, Nebraska, and Michigan State all at home, and trips sandwiched in between to Columbus and Iowa City.
I got to tell you, I think this is a really sets them up to have maybe more than just that middle of the pack, this schedule they have. I like it. I think this could be a really an opportunity for Minnesota to maybe get in that 9-win range before it's said and done.
Well, the only 2 teams I say, like, I'll count it up as a loss right now, and I'm just saying that off the cuff, is Ohio State and Iowa, both at those sites. Beyond that, like, can they beat Purdue? Yeah, of course.
Beat everybody else.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nebraska. Yep. Michigan State.
Yep.
I mean, they probably will be better, but we don't know to what degree. So is that winnable? Yep. So, yeah, I think there's a real possibility with a lot of question marks about Cal that you can say, I feel like we could be like, what's that? How many games is that? 6, that's 9. I feel like they'd be like 7-2 is very reasonable and maybe even better than that.
Yeah,
if you can like beat Iowa.
I agree. There's 3 games, and we're not done, but there's 2 games right now that you probably say, okay, Ohio State, Oregon, all the other ones are very more than capable of winning.
So after Michigan State and that big stretch in the middle, back to the bye week, their second and final, and then they return for a 3-game stretch. It'll be the Oregon Ducks in Eugene. then at Northwestern, so back-to-back road games there, and then back at home on Saturday, November the 29th, to host Luke Fickell and the Wisconsin Badgers, which who knows where he is in the big picture of the coaching carousel and hot seats and all of that. A very important year for Luke Fickell. And so maybe that game has some even higher stakes. Maybe Minnesota's or Wisconsin's playing for a spot in the Big Ten title game. We don't know, but that's how it will close out: at Oregon, at Northwestern, and then Wisconsin there on Saturday, November the 29th.
That's a 9-3. We don't know about Wisconsin, Nebraska. I think that sets you up to be reasonable to think they could go 9-3.
9-3 ceiling, 7-5 floor. I'm happy with that. If
the
I'm
guy
PJ
can coach.
Fleck.
He's a good coach. They're not gonna beat themselves very often.
Pierre Nugent, who does his pregame coaching show, does triple option stuff with me, and I asked him. I said, "Did you kind of walk in like this guy's a walking cat poster and all that stuff?" He said, "Yeah, but he kind of backs it up." So I'll have to give somebody who knows him the credit. But the row the butt stuff, when there was
row
people,
the boat.
I said, did I say rub the boat?
You said
row
something completely.
I think you said rub the butt.
Rub the butt or something.
I think he said rub the butt. Yeah.
Well, whatever he says. He may say that too. I don't know. But row the boat stuff, I didn't like. I don't like that stuff. I don't like coaches that speak in cliches, which is, I don't like when.
So you hate all coaches.
I don't like when coaches speak in cliches, not coaches. They do, but it was annoying, and I was really worried that when Baylor was going to hire him, I knew it, and I was going to have to go to all these press conferences.
I don't even know if they interviewed him.
No, but I knew it. I knew that I was going to have to sit in all these press conferences with somebody I abjectly hated.
That would have been Matt Rule, right? That they hired instead. Yeah. And I don't know how PJ, I don't know that he could have come down. He could have done the row the boat thing or in your case, rub the butt thing.
Yeah.
But no, the row the boat thing with the Brazos River right there, I suppose. But he doesn't strike me as a Texas guy or anything that would have really fit in all that well. So I think that was best for all parties, and I don't know how realistic that even was. But yeah, he's a good coach. There's no denying that. And he has ripped off a couple of 9-win seasons here in the last 5 years. At Minnesota, 5, 7, 11 wins in 19, 3-20, which that was COVID, 9, 9, 6. And then 8-5 last year. So
they're stabilized.
They're definitely stable, and
it's not
maybe
like
it's
Minnesota
time to
has this huge history in the last 20 years. Go ahead.
Maybe it's time to ramp back up to the what?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Maybe it's time to ramp back up to the double digits. But he's a good coach. So
they rarely beat themselves. It's not like they have a great history. Yeah, they do back when they won national titles years and years and years ago. I like what he's done. I know this, that they seem like they're going to always be in that 6-6 and better. They're going to be a bowl team most every year. So I think that's a 9-3, as you mentioned, Paul, with the 3 games, Ohio State, Oregon, and maybe Iowa. And if anybody jumps up, then maybe it's a 7-5.
Yeah. Nebraska could make them 8-4. Those things, those are the toss-up games. Michigan State, toss-up games. Wisconsin, yeah.
But then, again, that's the entire Big 12. There's a big group of about 8 or 9, 10 teams that you don't know if they're going to be 5-7 or 7-5 as far as in the regular season.
Yeah, so they don't play UCLA. They don't play Michigan. They don't play Indiana. They don't play USC. Those are just some of the teams that they do miss out on in the Big Ten schedule. So take that into account. I guess they don't play Penn State either. I have to add them on there. So they do. Everybody's going to miss some of the better teams. Nobody plays Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, and then Iowa. Or, you're going to have to miss somebody with the giant conferences we have now. So they do miss some pretty good teams. Washington, they miss as well. So we'll see whether or not that works out in their favor. But there you go. There is the schedule for PJ Fleck in Minnesota.
Their non-conference games are Buffalo, Northwestern, which is Natchitoches, Louisiana, and Cal. That's not, I'm not going to say weak. That's not fair because we don't know about Cal, but that seems to be one of the weaker ones we've seen since we started doing this. It seems like about a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
They played Northwestern twice. The Demon Deacons, and I don't know if they're allowed to be called that anymore. And then Northwestern, of course, out of Illinois.
Well, they were never the Demon Deacons because that was Wake Forest.
No, what are they? The Demons. No, Natchitoches, Louisiana, Northwestern
yeah, they're
Demons.
Demons.
Yeah, I still think.
Listen, they're demons. They didn't get ordained. They're
That's right. That's not a private school. They and SFA fight over a 10-foot wooden Indian. Craig, anything else?
No, like I said, there's the schedule for Minnesota and the highlights.
I believe it's Nebraska.
It is.
Dear God.
Can't wait.
That's going to be awesome to break them down and how they're going to get to 6 or 7 wins. All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina and his top 5. Andrew Valade threw out a couple of polls as he does every single day. We'll look at the poll results for that more. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for all of your automotive needs. Whatever you're looking to get done, they can help you get done over at Richard Carr. Looking to get into a new vehicle, pre-owned vehicle, looking to get your vehicle worked on, they can make all that happen for you. Right now, they're celebrating the good old United States of America with their red, white, and blue tax savings event. Every new or used car and truck is priced with special American size savings. So, for example, if you're driving a boring EV, you can flip the switch to something a little bit more electric, if you will. Test drive the new Cadillac Lyriq. The all-wheel drive Lyriq offers 500 horsepower, will go 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds, and has a single charge distance of over 300 miles. So the Cadillac Lyriq, one of the new vehicles you can test drive and check out over right now at Richard Carr. You can also save hundreds, if not thousands, depending on the make and model. But for example, right now, save $750 on a new 2025 Buick Envista, which was recently named the 2024 Car and Driver's Editor's Choice. That's just a small sampling of all the big savings they've got going on right now. Locally owned, locally run, celebrating 26 years of business in Waco. Do business with a dealership who gives back to the local community. Deal with people you can count on and take advantage of the red, white, and blue tax savings event right now at Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com. Founded in 1910, Samsonite is the world leader in durable, high-quality luggage and travel accessories. Made to the highest standards, our products won't let you down. We give you the confidence to get out there and explore. Inspired by the past, devoted to the present, and built to inspire a multi-generational future, Samsonite is here to elevate your journey. Travel with Samsonite and pack confidence every step of the way. Shop now at shop.samsonite.com. Samsonite.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, presented by Flag and Anthem. The link's in the bio. Plus, go to 365sportsdeals.com for Flag and Anthem and all of our clients there. Click on them, and you'll get the best deal possible from all of them. These are the top 5 best jobs to have in college sports. Number 5,
Billable hours are undefeated, whether you're an attorney for the plaintiffs and the athletes, or you're an attorney for the NCAA, and you could just keep billing them, even though that you know that you're going to lose. And make no mistake, they've hired really good attorneys, because you have to hire really good attorneys when you got a potentially losing case. In fact, one that's likely to lose. They have to be able to pull out all the stops to at least get you the best deal possible. So if you would like to be an attorney and be around college sports and you don't know what job that can take you, well, guess what? Here's your discipline. College sports lawyer. Big time money, great job, because especially if you win. If you're Jeffrey Kessler, this is a great job, although he's pretty stressed out right now trying to get this house settlement over the goal line. Number 4, point guard. The going rate at the top of the market right now is probably about $3 to $4 million a year for a point guard, which is insane. Absolutely insane. And that's if you're an elite point guard. And obviously, between elite and good, you're going to make some pretty good money varying on the scale there. We heard reports that Rob Wright was getting $3.5 million to go to BYU. Now, we don't know these things for sure, but the market is expensive for a point guard. I think you've got to start the bidding at 2 and hope for the best in the transfer market. Number 3, quarterback. And you'll be wondering, like, what 2 jobs are better than this? Here's the deal about quarterback. And this is why I didn't put left tackle or defensive end, because those guys in one shots, if they're elite, they can get a lot of money. But they're kind of one-offs, like individually. But as a group, quarterbacks can demand a lot, and you don't really have to be elite. Now, Cam Ward was elite. Absolutely, totally elite. DJ Uiagalelei, who Florida State settled on instead of Cam Ward, not elite, but still got about 7 figures from Florida State. That's a good deal, that just because you're in a position that's so rare and so tough to hit on, you can demand low 7 figures to start before performance on the field even really comes into it. So, yes, you can get a Cam Ward. Look, Jaden Daniels, I don't think went to LSU primarily for the NIL, but he made a good chunk of money there. But to start with him, that was probably about $750,000 a couple years ago. And then to retain him probably cost a little bit more as he played better and better, eventually winning the Heisman Trophy. Number 2, AJ DeBonsa. You want this job. The singular unicorn big man basketball player. $7 million a year. And look, I can go back on quarterback to Nico Iamaleava. He's the AJ DeBonsa of football, or AJ DeBonsa could be the Nico of basketball, although BYU knows they're only getting him for a year, which is why it's probably worth it to pay $7 million. Now, if you had to pay $7 million a year, that would be insane. But since you only have to pay 1 year, you only have to come up with that money for this unicorn for 1 year. That's why it's worth it to the BYU faithful. Now, AJ DeBonsa gets to step in and see if he can live up to that in year 1. And they've built a very interesting team around him to try and do that in Provo. Number 1, head coach. In spite of all the stresses and all the rule changes and everything that doesn't go your way, you're still, especially at state schools, the highest paid employee. And at state schools, you're not only the highest paid employee at the school, you're one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid, in the entire state. That's a great job. $13 million a year for this guy right here. He's at the top of the list. And then it goes down slightly down through the top 20. So being a head coach in football or basketball, a great, great gig, no matter the stresses that come with it. Now, Kirby Smart and the like, they can complain about the things, and there are legitimate things, but I do think that for a lot of people, it falls on deaf ears when you get to go back to your $13 million a year check all the time. That's going to do it for this top 5. Andrew Villade's polls, they're coming your way. As soon as Smokey decides you are worthy of receiving said information.
Here we go. We are worthy. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. Andrew, fire them up. Poll results.
Hang on. I got them processing.
I always try, when I see them, which I do, to put my vote in, who's winning the NBA Finals. Oh, dear God, Emory got involved in flooding the ballot box with OKC at 45%. Then everybody else pretty much equal. Did you guys know that the only teams on that list that have ever won an NBA championship are the Knicks?
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Twice, back in the 70s. Pacers, ABA titles. Minnesota, no. Oklahoma City Thunder, I have this nugget. They're connected to Seattle Supersonics, but they do not share their history because they want to respect Seattle if they ever get an NBA team back. The 1979 Sigma
not the
company.
Not the Bud Adams rule.
No, but so they do not have that championship in 1979.
Yeah.
Well, the Knicks being on there prevented I don't know how many TV executive deaths that otherwise would have occurred.
Yeah.
If you had Indianapolis, I mean, I know Indianapolis is a big city, don't get me wrong, but like Indy, OKC, and the Twin Cities, you're not loving that. But New York City, you're loving that.
Well, you're not going to go through, like, you go through the Knicks crowd and it's like Spike Lee, Ben Stiller, you know, all these great, like all the great old Knicks are always there. John Stewart and Pete Davidson and like all these celebrities. It's like, you know, it's like a Lakers game. And then you go like to the Indiana Pacers crowd, like, hey, Larry Bird came tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw as the Knicks game, I see him constantly as Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
He's like at all the Knicks games. But yeah, I mean, that was cool. MSG is, you know, I'm not in line with the people who say that the national championship should be at the Rose Bowl every single year, although I'm more open to that now than I was maybe even like 6 months ago, the more I've thought about it. But I do have to agree with the people that say it's just different when the Knicks matter and Madison Square Garden's rocking. Like, I don't always buy that. It's like
basketball.
I don't believe it's always better when it's Lakers Knicks, or it's always better when I don't always believe that, but I do think that Knicks basketball and the playoffs at MSG when they're good is something different.
We did 2 days of show there when Baylor played South Carolina in the Sweet 16.
Oh, it's so much fun.
And it was so much fun. And like you know, I guess like I don't know if I bought that narrative because I remember like when people talk about the NIT, but like the finals are at MSG and you're like, I mean, like the Knicks, you know, they haven't been good since the 90s, right? And they didn't even win back then. But when you walk into the building and you just start seeing sport, like, you know, the boxing legends, the entertainment legends, the
Rangers,
the Knicks,
and
the
hockey.
Rangers, and like all of that, you're like, no, this place is a freaking mecca if I've ever seen one. And you walk in, and it's one of those stadiums that has a vibe to it, and those, in my opinion, are rare. You know, Cameron Indoor, the Knicks, Yankee
Boston
Stadium,
Garden before it was
like
torn down.
Like Fenway Park, Wrigley Field. Like MSG has like the cliche way is to say like, oh, it's got its own soul, but it really does.
It's a museum.
And Craig, I wish you could have gone with us just so you could experience it. And I hope we get to do something there again.
Ali Frazier,
really,
that kind of
awesome.
stuff.
All the
Dempsey,
all the WrestleManias and
it's just unbelievable.
I've seen the outside. It's about my extent. I would love to go inside MSG, but I'd vote OKC right now as well.
Huge opening. Yeah,
I think OKC would be the favorite.
The most random thing I thought of, Craig, was Andrew Dice Clay. Though, walked in and I thought of Andrew Dice Clay in the 80s doing his special in the round there.
Second poll, the 136 votes. This one here. Oh my goodness, Andrew stuffed this ballot box. Not even close. The Stars, who had to knock out Winnipeg in game 6? It was overtime.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Florida. Edmonton has been in 3 consecutive, I think, Stanley Cup conference title series. And then Carolina 9%.
Canada has one hope.
That's all they got.
And they went in. I remember watching like the pregame show on ESPN, PK Subban, and they were talking about like, hey, like right at the beginning of the playoffs, like if this is ever a year where a Canadian team's going to do it,
3 chances.
And then here, but like it was, and then just chock full. The Leafs were good. Like all these teams that hadn't been good in a while, the Jets, the Oilers, like everybody's in, right? They're all in. And then we get to the conference finals, and one of them is hanging a boot.
Yeah, and they've got a ton in their history. 5
used to be the Red Sox, and they hadn't won a World Series in my lifetime, and then it was somebody else and something else and something else, and now it's like a Canadian team winning the Stanley Cup is the last thing that I feel like I haven't seen at this point, basically. When was the Knicks' last world title, though?
I want to think it was like 73 or something like that.
and that's possible. I do think the Stars are rightfully a favorite for a lot of people. I think they got a great shot. Florida's been right there in the mix for like the last 3 years, 3-4 years. So
they won it last Tampa year. And Florida, they've got
Florida,
a chunk up. Yeah,
Florida's grabbed them a cup here in the last year, and they've been constantly competing for it. So, yeah, that would be a hell of a finals right there. And Andrew, are you a Stars fan? Like you're a Devils fan?
Yeah.
You like them, okay?
He claims both.
You claim, okay, that's cool.
Now,
yeah.
You know what you said. Now we're going to have to get Andrew a microphone.
Yeah, I don't think
We've
so.
just opened up Pandora's box.
We just have to push Garrett's over a little bit.
I just throw it at him.
Yeah, but no.
The Knicks' last one, they won it in 70 and 73, back with names like Willis Reed and Clyde Frazier and others.
Oh, by the way, let me ask you. I need your opinion on this. So Amanda's a huge hockey fan, but she's bitter because the Predators are so bad right now. They're awful. They're god awful. They might get one of the better players in the draft coming up, so that's good news for them. But
that's what happens when you're awful.
Yeah, when you're awful. And I said, well, she's like, well, no, we can't really pick it. I'm like, we can pick the Stars. I like the Stars. And she goes, no, you don't. And I went, yeah, I do. And she's like, no, you don't. And I'm going to die on this hill.
Well,
I'm a Stars guy.
She picked the Nuggets. You can get the Stars.
Exactly. Let's go Stars.
So she's telling you who you can't.
Like, guess what? You're not a Red Sox fan anymore.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
You like the Expos.
You know, last year in the World
Garrett's
Series.
giving us the rap, Paul.
Yeah. And last year in the World Series, she goes, well, I kind of would like to see the Yankees win. I'm like, the F you would.
That's
not in this house.
All right. Thank you, Andrew Valade. Emery Winters working on 365 Sports tonight, 10:30 tonight on the CW. Garrett Ross running the mothership for Craig and Paul. I'm David Smoak. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks to our sponsors. Have a great night. Good night.